Chapter 2376. Some immortals saw that Peony had been injured by the lightning tribulation and gave her some healing elixirs. Peony shook her body and expressed her gratitude to these immortals. Ning Shu went to the celestial official who registered the female immortals. The celestial official glanced at Ning Shu and then looked away. He asked slowly, "Where are you from? What are your roots? How long have you been cultivating?" "Peony Garden." "Wait, you're not the Peony Garden's Peony Fairy?" the celestial official asked. Ning Shu, asking for the size of my psychological trauma. He was speechless that he had to get involved with the Peony Garden's Peony Fairy. Chatting. "Where are you from?" "Peony Garden." "Isn't there a peony of unparalleled beauty there? Do you know her?" No matter where he went, he couldn't get rid of the Peony Fairy. Living under her shadow for the rest of his life, he felt that his birth was a tragedy. Ning Shu looked at the celestial official expressionlessly. "No, I'm a weed. I've been cultivating for more than 200 years. Today, I transformed. My name is Green." The celestial official recorded it and then told the female immortals what they had to do, unless they were very noble. Actually, the immortal world gave Ning Shu the feeling of an imperial palace. Although she was a fairy, she obviously had to do things like a palace maid. Moreover, immortals had very long lives. If they didn't change their appearance, they would live even longer. It was really hopeless. If he did something wrong, he would immediately be sent to the mortal world. His lifespan would be less than 100 years, and he would be a mortal who would die of old age and illness. Ning Shu sighed. Soon, Ning Shu was assigned to the Longevity Immortal Palace to be the incense fairy. The job was relatively easy. He just had to make some spices. Ning Shu was brought to the Longevity Immortal Palace. There weren't many people there, and it was very cold. It was like the Longevity Immortal Emperor himself, cold and unparalleled. The Immortal Palace's spiritual energy was very abundant, even more so than the Peony Garden. It was better to cultivate here. Ning Shu started to circulate his peerless martial arts. Spiritual energy rushed into his body, and it was very comfortable. In addition to his peerless martial arts, Ning Shu also cultivated plants. When he fought, he would be able to extend many vines. Although weeds were lowly, they had tenacious vitality. Even if they were about to die, they could produce new weeds and grow again. However, these little tricks were useless in the hands of the immortal world. As a newbie, there was naturally someone to teach Ning Shu, including the incense that the Longevity Emperor liked and the smell that he disliked. Ning Shu noted it down and pondered how to complete this task. As one of the more powerful great emperors in the heavenly realm, if he wasn't fascinated by the Peony Fairy, how could he start a war with the Devil Realm? After the Peony Fairy arrived at the Longevity Hall, several other emperors, such as Emperor Ziwei and Emperor Qinghua, came to the Longevity Hall and encountered the Peony Fairy. All of them developed a favorable impression of her. A few great emperors would definitely agree to start a war with the Devil World. The Immortal Realm and Demon Realm were united for the first time. The winner would have the right to have the noble Peony Fairy. Therefore, this mission was very difficult. Under Mary Sue's halo, no one could resist. Although these people from the divine realm were immortals, they still had the 7 emotions and 6 desires that humans should have: love, hate, greed, anger, and infatuation. How could one stop a person from liking another person? He thought that love was just like drinking water when one was thirsty. Ning Shu had a headache. Immortal Emperor. Didn't he have any self-control? Ning Shu expressed his disdain. If a Tom Su stood in front of her, she would hypnotize herself that he was just a skeleton. She just wanted to see if he had the heart to resist. Perhaps gods were more free and romantic than humans. They never suppressed their inner feelings. When they were in the Peony Garden, Ning Shu deliberately led the Thunder Tribulation to the Peony Fairy so that the next Thunder Tribulation would be more powerful. This meant the Peony Fairy was protected by the heavenly Tao. And there were so many attentive male gods who set up barriers for her to prevent her from being struck by lightning. Sometimes, there were some things that couldn't be envied. Lu Yi, hurry up and burn some incense. Emperor Qin Hua is coming to the Immortal Palace to play chess with you, Ning Shu instructed. Ning Shu nodded and went to burn some incense in the palace. Emperor Chongsheng was sitting with his legs crossed and drawing something on a piece of paper. Ning Shu extended a salute before opening the lid of the incense burner. He scooped some incense into the burner, lit the fire, and closed the lid. After a short while, a faint scent wafted out from the incense burner along with the smoke. The scent was very light, and it was quite refreshing. Emperor Chongsheng raised his head and looked at Ning Shu, who was standing at the side with her head lowered. Are you new here? Yes, I've only just taken human form, Ning Shu replied with his head still lowered. Emperor Chongsheng didn't ask any more questions. He didn't care that a new immortal had arrived. When Emperor Qin Hua arrived, the cold expression on Emperor Chongsheng's face finally dissipated slightly, and the two of them began to play chess. Other immortal maids brought immortal tea to the table. The two of them were playing chess using their intents. Scenes of war between the two countries appeared on the chessboard, and blood splattered all over the chessboard. Emperor Chongsheng's brows furrowed, and he placed down a chess piece, upon which a large swath of his opponent was killed. Emperor Qin Hua chuckled heartily. There's a massive disparity in power between the Wei country and the Jun country. It looks like I've won today. Ning Shu raised his head and quickly scanned the chessboard. The scenes of war were changing as the pieces changed. He was using all of the living beings in the world as chess pieces, right? The battles in the mortal world were merely the result of these immortals playing chess out of boredom. All of the dead were ants to these immortals. Ning Shu added some more incense into the incense burner, and the aroma of the incense became even more pronounced. As the battle progressed, both Emperor Qin Hua and Emperor Chongsheng wore serious expressions and didn't place down their chess pieces for a long time. The scenes on the chessboard were filled with corpses. Many people had already died, but even more people were going to die before a victor was decided. Ning Shu only lowered his head and grimaced. These gods controlled the mortal world and used all of the living beings in the world as chess pieces, but they were also manipulated by the heavenly Tao in the end, and the divine realm and demon realm fought like they were in the mortal world. Perhaps in an even higher place, there were also two people playing chess like this, using the God realm and the devil realm as chess pieces, fighting to the death, and only the God realm and the devil realm would die. Both of them died like ants in the mortal world. The final victor was Emperor Chongsheng. Emperor Qin Hua was a little perplexed. How did you win? The two countries aren't evenly matched. Emperor Chongsheng took a sip of the immortal tea with a smile on his face. Emperor Qin Hua was a little unconvinced. Let's play again. This time, we'll play against two countries of equal power. A few years had already passed since the divine realm had played a game of chess. During these few years, countless battles had taken place and countless lives had been lost. Chapter 2377. Emperor Chongsheng turned down Emperor Qin Hua's suggestion for another round and removed the chessboard. We'll play again next time. Emperor Qin Hua was unwilling to give up and insisted on playing again, but Emperor Chongsheng only shook his head. Emperor Qin Hua couldn't convince him otherwise, so he gave up and left the immortal palace. Make more incense in the future. Emperor Chongsheng turned to Ning Shu and said, I'll reward you with a golden pill. Ning Shu immediately expressed his gratitude. It wasn't a bad thing to receive an immortal pill. After all, an immortal pill like this could bring one back from the dead. Where did you ascend from? Fairy servant is a weed that grows in the peony garden, Ning Shu replied. Oh, so you're a weed that grows around little peony? You transformed before she did, Emperor Chongqing said. Ning Shu seriously suspected that the immortal emperor had already fallen in love with the peony fairy when she was still a flower when he called her Little Peony. Ning Shu, what the fuck? Ning Shu walked out of the palace with the golden pill in his hands before popping it into his mouth and munching on it like a bean. It seemed to be a little more powerful, but it was useless. Ning Shu began to work without any pay. Perhaps the boss would toss him a golden pill when he was in a good mood. It sounded like an immortal pill, but Ning Shu didn't really care. Cultivating for a while was more useful than eating golden pills. Incense was quite a busy job. If the boss was about to go to bed, he would need incense. However, he couldn't light something to wake him up at a time like this. Different situations required different incense. Thankfully, he didn't get mixed up. Ning Shu had been working for a while now, but the Peony Garden Fairy still hadn't transformed. The Peony Garden Fairy's transformation was something that the entire divine realm was looking forward to. Everyone was fantasizing about how beautiful the Peony Garden Fairy would be. Ning Shu had been to the Peony Garden. He wanted to uproot the roots of the Peony Fairy directly, but after thinking about it, there were still the Peach Blossom Fairy, the Lotus Fairy, and the Chrysanthemum Fairy. Wherever he went, chrysanthemums would bloom. Moreover, Ning Shu was afraid that if he killed her, it would affect the plan of the heavenly Tao. When the time came, a bolt of lightning would strike her to death. What was even more terrifying was that he would be targeted by all the male gods in the entire heavenly realm. There were also so many big shots. They were probably going to blast her into ashes. Furthermore, Peony herself was protected by the heavenly Tao. Tens of thousands of female immortals and goddesses in the heavenly realm were unable to kill her. At every turn, there would be male gods saving the damsel in distress. She herself was also able to turn misfortune into fortune. I won't touch the darling of the heavenly Tao. Moreover, this mission is incomparably cold. What a noble immortal emperor, don't fall in love with the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu smacked his head. He was in charge of everything, but he really couldn't control who she liked. This was definitely a fucking mission. He might as well throw the Peony Fairy into the demon realm. Ning Shu, he already had a bold idea in his heart. Should he just kill the immortal emperor? If he died, he definitely wouldn't fall in love with the Peony Fairy. The Peony Fairy was protected by the heavenly Tao. He couldn't possibly protect the immortal emperor like that. Ning Shu left the Peony Garden. The fragrance assailed his nose. However, the male god said that the fragrance assailed his nose. He guessed that the male gods and female immortals had different noses. None of the female immortals said that the Peony Fairy smelled good. However, the male gods liked this smell. Some of the female immortals had no choice but to apply this kind of pungent fragrance on their bodies in an attempt to attract the male gods. However, pirated goods were pirated goods. How could they compare to the natural fragrance of the Peony Fairy? Among the flower fairies, only the Peony Fairy stood out. Her beauty overshadowed all the other female immortals. Female immortals, fuck, I can't stand it. Kill her. After leaving the Peony Garden, Ning Shu saw some male gods going into the Peony Garden to look at the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu was puzzled. It was just a flower. Did he really not get tired of looking at it every day? Or was it that the immortal realm was so bored that he could look at the same flower every day, and even make it look so beautiful? She was convinced. Ning Shu really didn't understand the beauty of the flower. If the Peony Fairy transformed, she might be able to look at it for a while. You're the incense fairy who was with the Peony Fairy? A male god stopped her. Ning Shu nodded. Yes. What's the matter? You transformed before the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu. So, couldn't he transform before her? Why was this guy stopping her? This male god was quite handsome. To be precise, there were no ugly people in the heavenly realm. Everyone had their own beauty and handsomeness. There was never a place that was so pleasing to the eyes. Looking around, there were all beauties and handsome guys. She felt like her soul was being purified. Even her eyes were shining. After a while, she became numb. Heaven Origin High God hesitated. I'm Heaven Origin High God. Ning Shu nodded and bowed. Greetings, High God. Heaven Origin High God looked at Ning Shu as if to confirm something. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. What's wrong with him? Just say it. I'm going to light incense for the eternal Heavenly Emperor. Ning Shu said. Ning Shu didn't have a good impression of these male gods. They were called gods, but they couldn't even resist a little beauty, even with the extra Mary Sue halo. You are. Heaven Origin High God hesitated and said, 0752. Ning Shu's pupils shrank. Then, he reacted. This was a mission enforcer, and a male one at that. Ning Shu sympathized with him. Under the female lead halo and Mary Sue halo, men would become blindly infatuated. He just didn't know if they could resist it. Hi. Ning Shu greeted him. He just didn't know what this mission enforcer's mission was. Was it to protect the Peony Fairy? All the male gods in the god realm were like flower protectors. Even if there were bad gods, they would use all kinds of methods to obtain the Peony Fairy. Because of the Peony Fairy, the entire god realm was filled with the sour smell of love and the smell of overturned vats of aged vinegar. The god realm was bustling with excitement. Heaven Origin High God got the answer he wanted. He didn't say much to Ning Shu. He just told him to be careful, which was considered a polite greeting. Then, he turned and entered the Peony Garden. They didn't ask each other what the mission was. Ning Shu shrugged. No matter what the mission enforcer's mission was, it couldn't threaten her. After all, her mission was to deal with the eternal Heavenly Emperor, not the Peony Fairy. The Peony Fairy's charm had nothing to do with her. It was just that her identity as a weed was always brought up. Sai, the weed beside the Peony Fairy, the weed in the Peony Garden, Ning Shu, MP. What did the weed have to do with you? Why did you have to mention the weed and the flowers together? But why hadn't the Peony Fairy transformed? Was it too early? Ning Shu rubbed her chin and pondered. She guessed that when she went through the tribulation, the Peony Fairy was affected. Her foundation was damaged and the tribulation was delayed. Chapter 2381. Ning Shu was shocked by the jealousy and hatred in his heart. He suppressed the negative emotions in his heart. She was the first person Ning Shu had seen who could attract hatred like this. Ning Shu grabbed the Peony Fairy's wrist. Her hand was soft and smooth, like the most gorgeous silk. This touch, you. The Peony Fairy was a little panicked. She was frightened by Ning Shu's sudden grab. Her eyes were as clear as Bambi's. At this moment, she was frightened. Ning Shu's stern face was reflected in her watery eyes. Come with me. Ning Shu pulled the Peony Fairy and was about to leave. Incense, bring the Peony Fairy in. The door of the immortal palace suddenly opened, and the cold voice of the immortal emperor sounded. Ning Shu was speechless. Damn it. She almost pulled the Peony Fairy away. What are you talking about? Powerful plot power. I can't hurt the Peony Fairy, but can't I deal with you? She only said that she wouldn't let the immortal emperor fall in love with the Peony Fairy. As for the immortal emperor's moral character, it was none of her business. Ouch. The Peony Fairy's wrist hurt. Pain flashed across her face. She saw the auspicious clouds were getting closer and closer. The female immortals were coming. Well, can we leave here? The Peony Fairy begged pitifully. The peony between her eyebrows was bright red, adding an enchanting feeling to her innocence. Pure and innocent enchanting, the peony fairy was the most charming. Incense, bring her in. The immortal emperor's voice sounded again. This time, it was with dignity and a trace of anger. Incense, bring her in. The immortal emperor is going to be angry. The mystic fairy walked out and bowed to the peony fairy. Please come with me. Well, can you let go of my hand? The peony fairy asked Ning Shu softly and pitifully. Incense. The mystic fairy reached out to pull Ning Shu's hand away. Ning Shu held the peony fairy's hand tightly. Finally, he pulled her into his arms and hugged her. Ning Shu's sudden move made the mystic fairy and the peony fairy confused. Ning Shu said, I like the peony fairy. Can you let the peony fairy be with me? Burn incense. Mystic fairy stammered. She looked at Ning Shu as if he was an alien. You and the peony fairy are both female immortals. So what if she's a fairy? Love doesn't care about age, gender, or race. Ning Shu took advantage of the time when Mystic Fairy was in a daze and dragged the confused peony fairy away. Ning Shu left the longevity hall with the peony fairy and headed to other places in the divinity. Mystic Fairy was confused. It took her a while to come back to her senses and report to the two great monarchs. Emperor Qinghua couldn't help but burst into laughter. A weed falling in love with a peony, and a female immortal at that. Oh my, this is hilarious. Could it be that they've developed feelings for each other after spending so much time together? Emperor Chongqing frowned. Go and bring her back. Yes, yes. Mystic Fairy hurriedly exited the palace and heaved a long sigh. What was up with that weed? She had almost been punished by the great monarchs. The peony fairy looked at Ning Shu and didn't know what to say. We're both female immortals. I know, I'm just saying that on purpose. There are many female immortals in the longevity hall. You're going to be hated by all of them no matter where you go, so it's not safe for you to go there, Ning Shu explained. She would be fine as long as she didn't go to the longevity hall. The peony fairy nodded. I see. Thank you. Ning Shu took a deep breath to repress his surging emotions. Ning Shu set up an enchantment barrier. Stay here. I'll come and find you later. Alright, come back as soon as possible. The peony fairy seemed to be very trusting of Ning Shu. It was probably because they had grown up in the same place. Ning Shu returned to the longevity hall and was greeted by the sight of the peony fairy, who was supposed to be inside the enchantment barrier. Ning Shu was quite displeased. He felt like his efforts had been for nothing. The peony fairy was also a little dumbstruck. She didn't understand why she had suddenly appeared here. Emperor Qinghua wiped the sweat off his forehead. His features were a little pale, but a smile appeared on his face as he looked at the peony fairy. You really are little peony from the peony garden. The peony fairy hurriedly extended a respectful bow toward the two emperors. Emperor Chongqing glanced at Ning Shu, and Ning Shu fell to his knees involuntarily. Thump. His knees were in excruciating pain. You deserve to be punished. Go and receive 3 bolts of divine lightning, Emperor Chongqing said coldly. The peony fairy immediately pleaded, Your Majesty, she only took me away to help me. There really are female immortals chasing after me. Emperor Chongqing turned to Ning Shu with a cold expression. Go and receive your punishment. Ning Shu rolled his eyes internally before standing up and leaving. Emperor Qinghua asked, She broke your restriction and left just like that? Emperor Chongqing didn't say anything. Instead, he turned to the peony fairy. You live in the longevity hall. No one will dare to do anything to you. Please forgive her, Your Majesty. She only did this to save me. The peony fairy pleaded on Ning Shu's behalf. A hint of a smile appeared on Emperor Chongqing's face, but there was a hint of mockery in his smile. It was just that no one knew who this mockery was directed at. You haven't taken human form for long, so there are some things you don't understand. You'll find out in the future. Do you really think she likes you? Emperor Chongsheng's expression was extremely cold. The peony fairy said, I know she said that on purpose. She's a plant, so she'll definitely be destroyed by the divine lightning. The peony fairy was also a plant that had ascended to immortality, so she was naturally fearful of divine lightning. Emperor Qinghua interjected, all right, just listen to what he has to say. He then turned to Emperor Chongsheng with a teasing smile. With the peony fairy here, your longevity hall is going to be flooded with people from now on. Emperor Qinghua chuckled and was just about to leave when he thought about it for a moment before giving the peony fairy a few pills that could change her appearance. In fact, this kind of elixir that could change one's appearance was useless because the fragrance of the peony fairy could be smelled within a radius of 1 mile. There was no other shop that sold it. Ning Shu exited the longevity hall to receive his punishment. There were many female immortals pacing back and forth outside the longevity hall, but none of them dared to enter. Seeing Ning Shu emerge, all of them surrounded Ning Shu and asked him if that bitch was in there. All of them gritted their teeth at the mention of the peony fairy's name with unbearable jealousy and hatred. Ning Shu nodded and replied, she's in there. Emperor Chongsheng has left the peony fairy behind. Do you want to go in? All of the female immortals cursed the peony fairy for being a seductive vixen instead of a peony upon hearing this. Ning Shu ignored all of these female immortals and made his way to the platform to receive his punishment, where he was struck by 3 bolts of lightning and almost had his soul destroyed. Ning Shu made a mental note of this. Once her cultivation progressed, he. Chapter 2382. When Ning Shu came back from the punishment, the peony fairy came to visit Ning Shu and asked Ning Shu if he was in pain. Ning Shu, of course, grimaced and said that he was in pain. How could he not feel pain after being struck by lightning? He deeply felt that all the lightning he attracted to the peony fairy when he transformed into human form was now returned to him. Sure enough, the peony fairy was the favorite of the heavenly Tao. Fortunately, with the law of wood, she had a steady stream of vitality and saved her life. If she was a little weaker, she might have been struck to death by a bolt of lightning. The peony fairy apologized, it's all because of me that you were punished. You are the first female immortal who was nice to me. The other female immortals don't like me. Hearing this, Ning Shu felt very speechless. To be honest, he couldn't suppress the irritation in his heart when he saw the peony fairy. He wanted to kill her with jealousy. How did this kind of woman come to have a body constitution that made men love her to death? Fortunately, we are all female immortals from the peony garden. We should take care of each other. Ning Shu said with a toothache, I want to rest. You can do as you please. Okay. Take care of yourself. Here are some elixirs. Do you want them? Several jade bottles appeared in the peony fairy's hand, which were full of elixirs. She put them beside Ning Shu and said, take some when you are sad. Ning Shu suppressed the impulse to smash the bottles on the peony fairy's face. He put them away and said, thank you. The peony fairy smiled. As soon as she smiled, a fragrant wind blew over. Then, petals floated down and fell on the bed. Ning Shu was speechless. It seemed that Ning Shu was hallucinating. He only felt that the flowers around the peony fairy bloomed layer by layer, which set off the peony fairy's beauty. What's with this kind of special effect? Ning Shu rubbed his bright eyes and said, I want to rest. Okay. I am in the East Hall. You can come to me. The peony fairy hesitated and said, well, it's impossible for us to be together. Ning Shu said. I know. The peony fairy breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that she couldn't bear to hurt Ning Shu. Ning Shu rubbed his chin. How did Mystic Fairy arrange the accommodation? The peony fairy lived in the East Hall, while Xian Yi of the Hall of Eternal Life lived in the West Hall. Was she trying to break up this pair of startling mandarin ducks? It was as if he wanted to separate her from the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu began to heal himself. After all, he had been struck by heavenly lightning. It was equivalent to experiencing 2 lightning tribulations in such a short period of time. He had to circulate his peerless martial arts. While Ning Shu was recuperating, the quiet Longevity Hall became lively because of the Peony Fairy. Many male idols came to visit the Longevity Emperor to see the Peony Fairy. There were male gods and female immortals, but the female immortals were forbidden from entering the Longevity Hall. The female immortal who was stopped outside stomped her feet in anger. It had only been a short while and this vixen had already bewitched the Longevity Immortal Emperor. The Longevity Immortal Emperor was a flower on a high mountain. No one in the heavenly realm could win his favor. Now, the Longevity Immortal Emperor was protecting her. This made the female immortals even more jealous. Their resentment was almost tangible. Especially when the male god they liked came here every day. It was easy to imagine what he was thinking. Wasn't he just here to see the Peony Fairy? Some female immortals had no choice. They couldn't enter and the vixen didn't come out. They went to the noble goddess and asked her to tell the Longevity Immortal Emperor to hand over the Peony Fairy. Otherwise, she would have to face the wrath of all the female immortals in the heavenly realm. However, the everlasting Immortal Emperor didn't give her any face. He chased her out of the everlasting palace empty-handed. The everlasting Immortal Emperor didn't give her any face at all. How was she supposed to survive in the immortal world? Of course, this hatred was all directed at the Peony Fairy. The more people you have to protect, the more I want to kill you. Otherwise, how can I show my face? Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu, who was recuperating, looked at the lively silence. Sure enough, after living for so long, the entire heavenly realm went crazy over such a trivial matter. Not only were the female immortals outside eyeing the Peony Fairy covetously, but even the female immortals in the Longevity Hall hated her. Look at the Peony Fairy. She seduced the emperor to protect her. As soon as she came, those male gods flew over like bees. I really don't know what's so good about her. She's just used to pretending to be innocent. Ning Shu listened to the female immortals who were sleeping next to him. His tone was sour, jealous, and hateful. He admired the Peony Fairy's ability to attract hatred again. In the demon realm, those female immortals became more irritable. Immortals were originally tough, so this made them even more irritable. From time to time, fights broke out in the demon realm. When a female immortal became irritable, she would directly fight with the person who protected the Peony Fairy. You want to protect her, right? I'll beat you too. Speaking of which, these female immortals in the heavenly realm were noble and elegant. Their fighting strength was not comparable to the fierce female immortals at all. Even so, the Peony Fairy did not do anything. Ning Shu's ears were filled with these female immortals who gathered together and chattered endlessly. He was impatient to listen to them. The more he attacked, the more envious he became. He probably wished he was the one who attacked. The more self-proclaimed a woman who knew her place, the more vicious she was to attack those who were bold and unrestrained. If you had the ability, you could also be beautiful. If you had the ability, you could also be protected by the heavenly Tao. But you were not so lucky. So what if you could not hurt the beauty of others? However, the Peony Fairy was really too hateful. When facing her, one's entire soul would be shrouded in negative emotions. There was probably something wrong with the Peony Fairy's magnetic field. Like repelling, opposite attracting, like a magnet. Ning Shu left the room and walked to the main hall. He saw an endless stream of male immortals coming to see the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu also saw Primordial Sky God, the mission enforcer. He actually came to join in the fun. Ning Shu's eyes almost popped out. Could it be that even the mission enforcers were charmed by her? Primordial Sky God also saw Ning Shu and pointed in a direction. Ning Shu went to the pavilion he pointed to. Why are you here? Are you also here to see the Peony Fairy? Ning Shu asked in surprise. Primordial Sky God rubbed his nose and said with an awkward expression, I really am here to see the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu. You are also charmed. I can't control myself. My mind is filled with the Peony Fairy. I think about her day and night. I can't control myself at all. Primordial Sky God frowned. Ning Shu, what was the mindset of a mission enforcer? Ning Shu still said, you have to control yourself. Don't think too much. The more you think about it, the more you beautify the Peony Fairy. I live with the Peony Fairy, and she eats 2 buckets of rice every day. She grinds her teeth and drools when she sleeps. Primordial Sky God. Actually, she is quite cute. She is cuter than the Peony Fairy. She has such a cute side in private. Ning Shu, my bad temper. Needless to say, these males' love for the Peony Fairy was just like how female immortals hated the Peony Fairy. There was no way to stop them. Chapter 2383. Even she couldn't control her anger when facing the Peony Fairy. If she had such a terrifying aura, no one would be able to resist it. She was a mission enforcer, so her anger was drawn out. Love was always better than negative things. It was more addictive. Did that mean the Eternal Emperor already had deep feelings for the Peony Fairy? Ning Shu felt that he should go and guard the Peony Fairy. Heaven Origin God probably saw Ning Shu, who was also a mission enforcer, and felt a little awkward. He suppressed his yearning and love and left the Eternal Palace. Ning Shu went to the Eastern Palace, but before he could enter, he was stopped. Xian Yi, who was guarding the Eastern Palace, stopped Ning Shu impatiently. What are you doing? The Emperor said that no one is allowed to enter. The Xian Yi guarding the Eastern Palace were very unhappy. They looked very humiliated. It was as if they had something to do with the Peony Fairy. It didn't matter if they really hated the Peony Fairy or if they were just following the trend. They just opened Ning Shu's eyes. Ning Shu guarded the Eastern Palace. He sat cross-legged and cultivated. He was here to see if the Eternal Emperor would come to visit the Peony Fairy. The 2 Xian Yi saw Ning Shu shamelessly guarding the Eastern Palace. One of them couldn't help but ask Ning Shu, Jinxiang, you don't really like the Peony Fairy, do you? What was the difference between him and those infatuated male idols who were separated by the walls of the palace? Ning Shu asked. Why do you say that? The whole Eternal Palace is saying that you like the Peony Fairy. Even the Emperor knows. Ning Shu said, it's just a rumor. You don't have to believe it. The Peony Fairy and I are from the Peony Garden. People from the same place are bound to be close. Sure enough, the rumors were getting more and more ridiculous. She was infatuated with the Peony Fairy, but not like that. She actually wanted to hit the Peony Fairy. Can you 2 sisters let me in to see the Peony Fairy? Ning Shu asked quickly. No, the Great Emperor said that no one is allowed to enter. The 2 fairies shook their heads. But you really don't have good taste. How could you fall for such a female fairy? She's seduced all the male gods in the entire god realm. If the female fairies outside knew that you like her, who knows what they would do to you? Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu gave up on explaining. If there was a misunderstanding, then so be it. Ning Shu stayed here. While cultivating, he released his spiritual power to check the Peony Fairy's situation inside. However, the inside was surrounded by a barrier. His divine sense could not enter at all. Was this a prison? Ning Shu withdrew his divine sense, leaned against the wall, and closed his eyes. Great Emperor. The two fairies hurriedly bowed when they saw the Longevity Great Emperor. Ning Shu opened his eyes and saw the Longevity Great Emperor standing at the door. Ning Shu immediately cursed in his heart. Then, he slapped his thigh with realization. The Longevity Great Emperor must have done this on purpose. Now, it was convenient for him to lock her up here. Although it was to protect the Peony Fairy, it was more to imprison the Peony Fairy so that he could enjoy her alone. He did not want her to attract other male gods when she went out. Ning Shu bowed to the Longevity Great Emperor expressionlessly. You want to be struck by lightning? Who allowed you to come here? The Longevity Great Emperor frowned and said unhappily. Ning Shu lowered his head and said, I want to see the Peony Fairy. The Longevity Great Emperor's face was as cold as ice. He looked at Ning Shu with a piercing gaze. Don't come again. If there's a next time, you'll receive 10 bolts of lightning. 3 bolts of lightning were enough to kill someone. 10 bolts of lightning were enough to shatter one's soul. Ning Shu's face was cold. I want to see the Peony Fairy. Not allowed. You're just a lowly fairy. How dare you disobey my orders? I know what you're thinking. Don't try to get close to the Peony Fairy with a fake face. The Longevity Great Emperor's aura was very strong, and it was directed at Ning Shu. It was like a mountain was pressing down on him. Ning Shu really didn't care about this pressure. She looked up and said, Then what do you think this immortal servant is planning? You won't fall in love with the Peony Fairy. Don't try to get close to her by saying we're from the same sect. Without my permission, you're not allowed to come here again, the Longevity Great Emperor said coldly. Ning Shu laughed instead. If I were to spread the word that the immortal emperor imprisoned the Peony Fairy and wanted to have her for himself, all the male gods in the god realm would see you as an enemy. Although the immortal emperor is strong, many ants can bite an elephant to death. I don't know if the immortal emperor can handle it. Ignorant fool. The Longevity Great Emperor did not get angry. Instead, he looked at Ning Shu with pity. If you don't know the truth, don't talk so casually. When the two Xian Yi heard the conversation between the two of them, they wished they could cover their ears. They didn't want to hear the conversation at all. What was more shocking was that a lowly fairy would talk to the Longevity Great Emperor like that. Ning Shu squinted. How would I know if you don't tell me? If you tell me, I'll know what you're thinking. Don't you want to have the Peony Fairy for yourself? Ning Shu rolled her eyes, quickly calculating the whole thing in her mind, analyzing all the possibilities. You imprisoned the Peony Fairy on purpose? Ning Shu could only come up with one conclusion. Either the Longevity Great Emperor saw that the god realm was in chaos because of the Peony Fairy, so he put the Peony Fairy in the Longevity Hall. The others were afraid of the Longevity Great Emperor, so they did not dare do anything. But the Longevity Great Emperor also fell in love with the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu put his hands behind his back and pinched his fingers like a clairvoyant. In fact, he was filtering this matter out in his mind. The Longevity Great Emperor coldly stared at Ning Shu. You're just a little fairy. There's a limit to meddling in other people's business. Go and receive your punishment. 10 bolts of lightning. A little fairy like her would be struck to death by 10 bolts of lightning. The Longevity Great Emperor wanted to kill her. Ning Shu narrowed her eyes and smiled, Grand Emperor, you can't steal someone else's love. You can't read my mind, so how do you know that I won't fall in love with the Peony Fairy? Plus, I just received 3 heavenly thunders not long ago. If I get struck again, then I won't be able to keep my life. Please forgive me, Grand Emperor. There must be some inside story behind this matter that she did not know. She had to get to the bottom of it. The client was just a lowly little Xian Yi. She definitely didn't know what the inside story was. She also didn't know what the great emperors were planning. Ning Shu rolled up her sleeves and was ready to fight. Today, she had to fight with the Longevity Immortal Emperor. Otherwise, the longevity immortal emperor would ask her to receive punishment and be struck by lightning. If he showed his strength, he wouldn't dare to treat her casually. Chapter 2384. Emperor Chongsheng was as cold as ice. Seeing Ning Shu like this, he frowned. You dare to disobey my order? Ning Shu curled his finger at Emperor Chongsheng. I don't dare to take another bolt of lightning. 10 bolts, I'll die. Most importantly, the lightning was too harmful to the soul. Ning Shu didn't want to torture his soul for no reason. Seeing Ning Shu's provocative finger, Emperor Chongsheng put on a fake smile. He wanted to laugh, but his face was twisted. His facial nerves were extremely uncoordinated. You may survive 10 heavenly thunders, but you will never survive if I attack you. We'll only know after we try, Ning Shu said with a smile. Then, she crooked her finger at Longevity Emperor. Emperor. Mystic Fairy came over on her cloud. She said to Emperor Chongsheng, Emperor Ziwei sent someone to invite you to the Ziwei Palace. He said he has something to discuss with you. Emperor Chongsheng glanced at Ning Shu and nodded. He waved his sleeve and said to the 2 trembling fairies, if this person enters the palace, I'll kill you. Yes. Yes. The 2 fairies glanced at Ning Shu. They only hoped that he would be smart and not drag them down with him. Emperor Chongsheng flew away on his cloud and disappeared in an instant. Ning Shu was a bit disappointed. He thought he could fight Emperor Chongsheng. Jinxiang, did you leave your brain in the ground when you transformed? Mystic Fairy looked at Ning Shu with hostility. Do you want to drag all the sisters in the palace down with you? What do you want? I just want to see the Peony Fairy, Ning Shu said pitifully. Why do you want to see her? Why do you care if she lives or dies? Mystic Fairy said directly. Why do you have to go against Emperor Chongsheng for her? Do you think you can get away with it if Emperor Chongsheng gets angry? Ning Shu, thought this made her and the Peony Fairy look like a pair of ill-fated mandarin ducks. She couldn't bear to look at it. For the time being, he would not go in. When the time came, he would sneak in. Ning Shu said, then I won't go in. As the steward of the Palace of Immortal Life, Mystic Fairy was very wary and displeased of Ning Shu, who was like a bomb that could kill everyone at any time. The Great Emperor wants you to receive 10 bolts of heavenly lightning. Mystic Fairy said. Ning Shu turned around and smiled at the Mystic Fairy, which made her a little uncomfortable. I don't intend to accept my punishment. Even if the Great Emperor is here, I won't accept my punishment. 10 bolts of heaven's thunder may destroy my soul. Sister Mystic Fairy, do you want me to die? Where there were people, there would be disputes and fights, even if they were immortals. I didn't ask you to die. You did something wrong. Besides, it was Emperor Chongsheng who punished you. What do you mean by asking you to die? It has nothing to do with me whether you accept your punishment or not. Mystic Fairy turned around and flew away on the auspicious cloud. The 2 fairies looked at Ning Shu warily. I won't let you in. Ning Shu shrugged and turned to leave. When she returned to the West Hall, Mystic Fairy gave her another task, which was to pick the peach of immortality. She gave her a beautiful basket. Ning Shu knew that Mystic Fairy wanted to send her away and not let her find the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu didn't say anything. She took the basket and left the Palace of Immortal Life. There were many female immortals outside the Palace of Immortal Life. They wandered around and looked like they wouldn't give up until they caught the Peony Fairy. It was as if they hated the Peony Fairy for 10 lifetimes. The moment Ning Shu left the Palace of Immortal Life, she felt many gazes on her. Some people even followed her. Ning Shu didn't care. She carried the basket to the Peach of Immortality garden. The Peach of Immortality was growing very well. It was big and one would be full after eating one. It was filled with sweetness. Ning Shu was picking the peaches when she felt someone approaching. She stopped. You are Xian Yi from the Palace of Immortal Life. A cold female voice rang out. Ning Shu turned and saw a beautiful fairy. However, this fairy looked very arrogant and she was surrounded by a few other fairies. She gave off the feeling of a big sister. Ning Shu nodded. I am from the Palace of Immortal Life. Then do you know where the Peony Fairy is in the Palace of Immortal Life? The female immortal asked. Did they want to snatch it by force? If they really had the strength, they wouldn't have lingered outside for so long and didn't dare to offend Emperor Chongsheng. I know, but Emperor Chongsheng said that no one is allowed to enter. Ning Shu said helplessly. She was really speechless. She was basically following the plot now. So these people still found her. It felt like she was destined to give Peony the final blow. As expected, that vixen has already charmed Emperor Chongsheng. She wants Emperor Chongsheng to protect her. How shameless. The other female immortals said with a sinister expression. Jealousy made people ugly. They were all little fairies. Why were they so ugly? Get the Peony Fairy out and I will give you benefits. The leading female immortal said arrogantly to Ning Shu. Ning Shu shook his head like a rattledrum and said timidly, Emperor Chongsheng will kill me. Don't be afraid. Don't tell me you want to see Emperor Chongsheng protect that shameless vixen. The female immortal frowned and looked at the timid Ning Shu with disdain. If the client heard such words, he would be filled with jealousy. He helped Peony get out of the Palace of Immortal Life. Who knew how the client opened the enchantment? The power of love was just that great. This. Ning Shu's expression was very hesitant. He was scared and tempted. But he still refused. Forget it. Emperor Chongsheng will kill me. And there is an enchantment. I can't open it. Ning Shu shrugged helplessly. The leading female immortal gave Ning Shu a bottle and said, this is dirty demonic liquid. It can pollute the enchantment and break it. Okay, so that's what it was. Ning Shu took the bottle. Let me think about it. What's there to think about? Just do it. Otherwise, I will kill you. Ning Shu shrunk his neck. We are all fairies. How can we fight and disturb world peace? Ning Shu picked a basket of immortal peaches and returned to the Palace of Immortal Life. Ning Shu gave the peaches to Xian Nu and asked, Sister Xian Nu, is Emperor Chongsheng back? Just give up. Mystic Fairy took the basket and turned to leave. Ning Shu touched the bottle. He didn't go find Peony Fairy for now. He returned to his room and began to cultivate. A few fairies slept on a bunk. When they saw Ning Shu come, they ignored Ning Shu. Then they began to mock Ning Shu for being disgusting. Not only did he like women, but he also liked women like Peony. Ning Shu suddenly realized that he had become the same as Peony Fairy. He had become an existence that others couldn't wait to avoid. Chapter 2385. Ning Shu didn't care at all. Emperor Ziwei said something to Emperor Chongsheng, but he didn't come back. Ning Shu sneaked into the East Palace. He set up a water enchantment barrier around himself and swaggered into the East Palace. Ning Shu felt a repulsive force from the enchantment barrier. This was the enchantment barrier set up by Emperor Chongsheng. Ning Shu took out a bottle and poured a drop of black liquid onto the enchantment barrier. The black, filthy demonic liquid sizzled like sulfuric acid and corroded a hole in the enchantment barrier. The liquid dripped onto the ground and turned the ground black. Ning Shu crawled into the hole and knocked on the door. The Peony Fairy asked, "Who is it?" "It's me." The Peony Fairy opened the door and was very happy to see Ning Shu. "Why are you here?" Ning Shu got right to the point. "It's not safe for you to stay here." "Why?" "Emperor Chongsheng said he would protect me, the peony fairy asked. Ning Shu told the peony fairy that the fairies were looking for her. They have found me. Besides me, they may find other fairies. At that time, you will be in danger. The peony fairy wore a sad expression. Even so, she was still very beautiful. Her melancholy appearance was very charming. Then what should I do? The peony fairy asked with a sigh. She looked at Ning Shu with clear eyes. Ning Shu, you might as well run first, Ning Shu said. The peony fairy, but where should I go? The fairies here don't like me. Ning Shu, go to the mortal world. Ning Shu didn't dare to attack the peony fairy. He lured the lightning to the peony fairy and returned it not long after. This was a precious egg. He couldn't touch it. Go to the mortal world. The peony fairy frowned and hesitated. But I'm not familiar with the mortal world at all. Ning Shu was just about to speak when he suddenly felt a powerful pressure pressing down on him. Moreover, there was more than one. Ning Shu looked up and saw a mortal emperor and the other 3 emperors standing on clouds, looking down at Ning Shu and the peony fairy. One of the white-bearded old men was the great emperor of the East. He stroked his white beard and said, "So this is little peony." His tone was rather melancholic. "You're courting death." The longevity immortal emperor's face was extremely cold as he spat. Ning Shu shrugged. What can I do? I can't just watch the person I love die. Ning Shu spoke as if he was telling the truth. Emperor Ziwei was a very scholarly emperor, and he furrowed his brows upon seeing this. I didn't divinate for this weed. Emperor Qin Hua appraised Ning Shu. Do you know something, Xian Di? Ning Shu? I don't know. However, Ning Shu wore an unfathomable expression, as if he really did know something. The peony fairy hid behind Ning Shu and felt that the atmosphere wasn't quite right. She tugged on Ning Shu's sleeve and whispered, "What do we do now?" Piss off. The longevity immortal emperor seemed to have lost his patience. He was filled with murderous intent towards Ning Shu, a lowly immortal who had offended him. Ning Shu, why do we have to kill the peony fairy? The scholarly Emperor Ziwei countered with a question of his own. Who told you we have to kill her? Because you're afraid of her. Ning Shu suddenly understood, as if a ray of light had illuminated her heart. He suddenly understood. These people were all gods, so they had to have predicted or sensed that the peony fairy had come with a mission from the heavenly Tao. Perhaps the peony fairy herself didn't understand this. Wasn't there a saying that when the world fell into chaos, all demons and devils would appear? When abnormal phenomena appeared in the heavens, there were bound to be demons and devils. When abnormal things happened, there was bound to be demons and devils. Ning Shu looked at Emperor Chongsheng with a hint of a smile. Emperor Chongsheng was probably imprisoned to kill the peony fairy, but in the end, he went crazy for love. Surprise, surprise, surprise. You all know how to have fun. Emperor Chongsheng reached out, and a huge palm pressed down on Ning Shu. A surging golden dragon roared silently and rushed out of Ning Shu's body, passing through the huge palm and dissipating the power of the palm. Emperor Chongsheng narrowed his eyes. I underestimated you. You and I have karma, but now you're going to stand on the opposite side of me. Ning Shu smiled. No matter how much karma there is, it's all been repaid. Her survival was entirely due to the calculations of the heavenly axiom. It was only through the mouth of the Eternal Emperor that the person who entrusted her fell in love with the Eternal Emperor. Out of jealousy, he became the person who pushed the peony fairy to leave the divine realm and enter the demonic realm. But what was going on now? Why was she protecting the peony fairy? There was something wrong with the plot, but Ning Shu still had to send the peony fairy away. The war between the divine realm and the demon realm was entirely due to the self-healing of the heavenly Tao plane. When it came to eradicating a race or country, war was the best way. Ning Shu wanted to laugh. This was the mission of this grass. The white-bearded Emperor Dong Do stroked his beard and said, "There are some things that a little fairy like you doesn't know. Now get out of the way, or your 100 years of cultivation will turn to ashes." The peony fairy was a little scared now. Ning Shu asked in horror, "Why? You don't know?" It was really because of the low status of the person who commissioned her that Ning Shu could only speculate about a lot of things. As for the specifics, Ning Shu still didn't know. Perhaps these four big shots knew that the peony fairy would make the divine realm and the demon realm fight, so they imprisoned the peony fairy and didn't dare to kill her, fearing that the heavenly Tao would kill her. If the heavenly Tao wanted to kill her, even the gods couldn't resist it. It was better to just keep her locked up like this. The person who imprisoned her fell in love with the person who was imprisoned. Ning Shu pieced together the general situation from the fragments he knew. Did this count as killing them with love? Everyone, you should think about how to avoid death. The will of the heavens cannot be defied. Ning Shu wagged his index finger. Emperor Qin Hua was a little impatient. Didn't I tell you to just end everything? This wouldn't have happened. Emperor Chongsheng looked at Ning Shu. You're a lot smarter than I thought. You're most likely not a little fairy, are you? Ning Shu replied, I'm a red weed. You can take a look if you don't believe me. Seeing the peony fairy hiding behind Ning Shu, Emperor Chongsheng's eyes darkened. Darkness brewed in his eyes. Ning Shu met Emperor Chongsheng's eyes. Emperor Chongsheng was most likely both in love and in fear of the peony fairy. Sometimes, being too beautiful was a sin. Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief and cracked his neck. You're not going to gang up on me, are you? That's not going to sound good. It's going to damage the reputation of your emperors. Emperor Qin Hua immediately retorted, what does this have to do with you? Why are you jumping up and down like this? We're doing this for the safety of the divine realm. Ning Shu came to a sudden realization. So you're saying that you're imprisoning the peony fairy to protect the stability of the divine realm? Chapter 2386. Ning Shu finally figured out the ins and outs of this matter. These big shots must have vaguely sensed or calculated that there would be a god in the divine realm who would start a war between gods and demons, so they targeted the peony fairy. They didn't care as long as the peony fairy didn't leave the divine realm. However, they didn't expect the peony fairy to be so charming that the whole divine realm was in a mess. Some gods were obsessed with the peony fairy. Some female immortals seemed to have lost their minds, so the immortal emperor kept the peony fairy in the immortal palace as a prisoner. He didn't let her go out. However, he didn't expect that a group of jealous female immortals actually took the peony fairy away. The peony fairy fell into the demon realm and set off a storm in the demon realm. However, the immortal emperor who imprisoned the peony fairy also fell in love with the peony fairy. Everything was put together in a straight line, and everything was crystal clear. On the surface, those female immortals were jealous of the peony fairy and didn't want the peony fairy to hook up with their favorite gods in the divine realm. The immortal emperor let these female immortals take the peony fairy away. On the surface, the immortal emperor protected the peony fairy and didn't let others get close to her. To put it bluntly, he was imprisoning her. The powerful gods could sense this disaster and were thinking of ways to avoid the gods' killing intent. Now Ning Shu had to face the strongest and most powerful people in the divine realm. Ning Shu glanced at the pitiful peony fairy standing behind and felt helpless. Even if she died, the peony fairy wouldn't die. Even if she was injured, her life would not be in danger. Green E, what should we do now? The peony fairy exhaled. Ning Shu asked. Because they were close, Ning Shu could smell her fragrance. Ning Shu asked the peony fairy, what do you want to do? I don't know. The peony fairy looked at the four great emperors standing on the auspicious clouds and said blankly, they won't harm me. Yes, we won't hurt little peony. Dong-do Grand Emperor stroked his white beard and smiled. He looked like a kind old man. As long as little Peony stays in the God realm, you can have anything you want. Heavenly treasures, spirit stones, or all kinds of good things. The great emperor of the East was like a strange uncle who was trying to coax a little lowly. Ning Shu snorted and said, "Not all girls like money. There are also some kind girls who like cute little animals, such as Land Rovers, BMWs, Jaguars, Hummers, Bugatti Veyron, and Lynx. There will be all of these." Great Emperor Dong-do said. Emperor Qin Hua was getting a little impatient. What the hell? Is there a need to make such a difficult decision? Emperor Ziwei replied in a scholarly voice, even if there aren't any peonies, there are still other lotus flowers and chrysanthemums. This mission of provoking the war between gods and demons could be given to the peony fairy, or it could be given to someone else. Once something happened to the peony fairy, the will of heaven would choose another suitable candidate. This was a calamity. Ning Shu turned to Emperor Ziwei and asked, "I heard you have an outer heaven stone, is that true?" "That's right." Emperor Ziwei nodded. "I do. Then I'll give the peony fairy to you in exchange for the outer heaven stone," Ning Shu said. The peony fairy stared blankly at Ning Shu before tugging on Ning Shu's sleeve with a pitiable expression. "Are you going to exchange me for something?" Ning Shu. "Don't worry, you'll be fine." He was going to exchange her for something before leaving with the peony fairy. Emperor Qin Hua looked at Ning Shu with a disdainful expression. "You're very close to the peony fairy, so you're only doing this because you want to use her as a bargaining chip to exchange for the outer heaven stone, you despicable man." Ning Shu puffed out his chest. "I am a despicable man, so I'll take the peony fairy with me." Ning Shu repressed the urge to beat the peony fairy into a pulp. "Go with Emperor Ziwei, I'll come find you later." The peony fairy bit down on her lips. "Do you really like this outer heaven stone that much?" "That's right, I like it very much." Ning Shu nodded without hesitation. The peony fairy thought for a moment before replying, "Then I'll go with Emperor Ziwei, you have to remember to come find me." "All right, I'll be sure to come find you." Ning Shu replied with a smile. Did this count as selling the peony fairy? She was counting the money for him. "Everyone," Emperor Qin Hua clicked his tongue before turning to Ning Shu. "Are you ashamed? What's there to be ashamed of?" Ning Shu countered with a question of his own. Emperor Qin Hua. "You're so shameless even though you're such a lowly being." Ning Shu tugged on the peony fairy's arm before turning to Emperor Ziwei. "How about you give me the outer heaven stone?" Emperor Ziwei was extremely calm. Even in the face of Ning Shu's blatant disrespect, he still replied in a calm and collected manner, "I can give you the outer heaven stone, and I can even give you a little more, but the price is that you have to stay out of this." What a difficult choice. I have to think about it. Impudent. Emperor Chongqing spoke in a cold voice as a magic tool appeared in his hand. This magic tool was constructed from countless thin needles, which rained down like a torrential rain of needles. Many vines extended from Ning Shu's hand, and these vines stacked on top of one another to form a round ball, which enshrouded Ning Shu and the peony fairy within, keeping these thin needles at bay. Ning Shu taunted, "Needles? You're not invincible East, are you?" Ahahaha, the peony fairy's expression was one of shock and horror. "Let's not fight anymore. Otherwise, I'll just go with them." Ning Shu, even if you want to go with them, you have to at least get something in return. The outer heaven stone is extremely powerful. The peony fairy didn't care about any of this. She didn't care about magic tools or power, and she didn't want to get anything in return. She was like a piece of floating duckweed, drifting with the wind. Her fate had already been decided. This was actually very satisfying. The peony fairy spoke with a forlorn expression, "Let's not fight anymore. You won't be able to beat 4 emperors. It doesn't matter where I go as long as I don't encounter any female immortals." If you like rocks, I can collect them for you in the future. Ning Shu almost blurted out, who wants your stinky things? I don't need your charity. However, he managed to repress his urge. He bit down on the tip of his tongue, and he took a deep breath before replying, I like them very much. The more the merrier. Wait, I'll go with you, the peony fairy said to the four emperors. Ning Shu withdrew his vines, and the peony fairy turned to Emperor Ziwei with a pair of clear eyes. Can you give that rock some green light? All right. Emperor Ziwei produced a dazzling rock that was shimmering with starlight. The rock floated toward Ning Shu before making a sharp turn and landing in Emperor Qin Hua's hand. Chapter 2387. Ning Shu looked on expressionlessly as Emperor Qin Hua snatched the star stone from him. Ning Shu was so angry that he wanted to beat him up. Emperor Qin Hua turned to the peony fairy and said, Little peony, stay away from people like him. He's only approaching you to satisfy his own selfish desires. The four emperors had very complex feelings toward the peony fairy. There was a mix of wariness, but there was also a hint of doting, as if they were worshipping her. The peony fairy said, Emperor Qin Hua, please give the stone to Lu Yi. Why are you so stupid? Emperor Qin Hua shook his head with a resigned expression. She's trying to trick you. You better give it to me. You make it sound like I'm despicable just because I'm trying to steal something from you. Ning Shu extended a hand and looked at Emperor Qin Hua expressionlessly. As for whether I'm lying or not, that's up to the peony fairy herself. The peony fairy nodded. Take this stone as a token of my gratitude to Lu Yi. Lu Yi has been very nice to me. All the other female immortals hate me, but she's been very nice to me. Ning Shu. I actually hate you too. This was an involuntary feeling. Emperor Qin Hua's expression darkened as he looked at Ning Shu with a stern expression. You're just a lowly fairy, how dare you speak to me like that? Ning Shu cocked his head to the side. Who knows if there will be any more emperors in the future? What gave you the confidence to provoke us four great emperors so confidently? Emperor Qin Hua was truly enraged. He felt like he was an ant trying to intimidate him. If he didn't satisfy her, then he would crush her to death. Otherwise, if everyone dared to strut around in front of him, what dignity would he have left as an emperor? Ning Shu's expression darkened even further at the sight of Emperor Qin Hua stowing away the stone. The peony fairy furrowed her brows with a depressed expression. Lu Yi, do you want me to get another one for you? Ning Shu grabbed the peony fairy's wrist and stepped on the auspicious cloud. He slowly floated up and looked at the four great emperors face to face. The outer sky stone belongs to me now. Now, give it to me. Emperor Qin Hua sneered coldly. What if I refuse? The other three emperors looked on in silence. Now that Emperor Qin Hua had stepped in, all they had to do was watch. Ning Shu pinched her fingers and stretched out her vines to tie the peony fairy to her back. She didn't want the peony fairy to be taken away by someone else in the middle of the fight. According to the peony fairy's character of believing everyone's words, she wouldn't ask for the star stone after being fooled by others. Ning Shu was now very obsessed with the stone. The peony fairy was lying on Ning Shu's back in a daze. Emperor Qin Hua was about to explode with rage. This was a blatant insult. This was a blatant provocation. It looked like he didn't take him seriously at all. Ning Shu extended a vine that was as thick as a fist toward Emperor Qin Hua. A cold sneer appeared on Emperor Qin Hua's face as lightning erupted from his body. The lightning struck the vines, reducing them to ashes in an instant. Emperor Qin Hua's attribute was lightning, which was the bane of plants like her and other creatures. When she was a human, she had cultivated peerless martial arts and was barely able to absorb the power of lightning. However, as a fairy whose roots were plants, the power of lightning was not something her body could withstand or absorb. Even if she could absorb it, the power of lightning would destroy her body. The Peony Fairy was a little scared of lightning. This reminded her of the excruciating pain from being struck by lightning during her human form. She turned to Ningshu. Stop fighting. How about I ask Emperor Qinghua for the stone? There's no need for that. I won't give it to you without a fight. There were still 3 emperors present, so it would be easier for them to negotiate after a fight. A huge golden dragon appeared on Ningshu's back. The dragon was extremely lifelike, and there was a faint spiritual light in its eyes as it charged toward Emperor Qinghua. Emperor Qinghua narrowed his eyes and extended a hand. A net of lightning enveloped the dragon. The net of lightning tightened as the golden dragon struggled to break free. Flashing lightning coursed through every inch of the dragon's body, but it didn't feel any pain. Instead, its body swelled larger and larger, as if it was about to break free from the net of lightning. Emperor Qinghua gripped the air, and the lightning on the net of lightning became even more powerful. Bolts of thick lightning struck the dragon's body as they drew closer and closer. Ningshu pointed a finger, and the dragon within the net of lightning collapsed before materializing into a new dragon, which charged toward Emperor Qinghua in the blink of an eye. The dragon crashed viciously into Emperor Qinghua's body, forcing him to stumble back a couple of steps with a dark expression. An even more powerful bolt of lightning erupted from his body, and the entire divine realm could hear the rumbling of thunder. It was as if divine might had descended, and all of the male and female immortals were feeling quite uneasy. What was going on? The Peony Fairy was lying on Ningshu's back, and her body was trembling with fear. She couldn't say anything as the 2 of them weren't going to listen to her anyway. The gigantic bolt of lightning seemed to have split the world in half before crashing into the dragon's body. The dragon was sliced in half, but it quickly materialized again. As long as there was enough spiritual energy, it could materialize into a dragon. Furthermore, dragons didn't know the concept of fatigue or pain. The dragon charged toward Emperor Qinghua before using its body to wrap around him. Emperor Qinghua's entire body was crackling with lightning, and the feedback power from the lightning was a little too much for Ningshu to handle. However, it appeared that Emperor Qinghua was at a disadvantage. Ningshu turned to Emperor Qinghua and said, "You're actually quite stupid. No one else has made a move yet you've made a move. Aren't you afraid of being punished by the heavens if you injure the Peony Fairy?" Everyone else was just spectating, and Emperor Qinghua was the only one who was eager to teach her a lesson. "Give it to me." Ningshu grabbed onto Emperor Qinghua's entangled body. Emperor Qinghua chuckled coldly as his body transformed into a streak of light and escaped from the dragon's entanglement. He stood on the other side with a face full of rage and embarrassment. He most likely didn't think that he would be beaten so badly by the lowly Xian Yi. Furthermore, there were 3 emperors watching from the sidelines. Where was he supposed to show his face in the future? Ningshu extended a hand. "Give me the stone." "What if I don't give it to you?" Emperor Qinghua couldn't find a way out of this embarrassing situation, so he decided to fight Ningshu to the bitter end. "Ningshu, then I'll elope with Fairy Peony." Emperor Qinghua looked at Ningshu with disgust as if he were looking at a heinous criminal. "You really are a selfish, greedy woman." Ningshu nodded. "Yes, that's the kind of person I am. It's as if you guys aren't selfish." Chapter 2388. Do you know that Celestial Peony Fairy has left the divine realm and descended into the mortal world? The entire world will be plunged into chaos, Emperor Qinghua said in a cold voice. Even gods were unable to resist Celestial Peony Fairy's charms, let alone ordinary mortals. The entire world would be plunged into chaos as they fought over her. Ningshu understood what Emperor Qinghua was trying to say. The heavenly Tao wouldn't harm ordinary mortals. Even if Celestial Peony Fairy were to fall, she would fall into the demon realm. Even if something were to happen along the way, she would still be saved in the end. Ning Shu spoke with a disdainful expression, "You're using the entire world as a chess piece, and now you're worrying about the entire world. Can you be any more pretentious? Countless people had died in this game of chess, yet you're worrying about the entire world. Do you think you're the one who's going to make the best of everything?" "Ignorant fool," Emperor Qing Hua said with an ashen expression. Ning Shu splayed his hands open. "I don't know anything about the entire world. All I know is that you're taking something that belongs to me, and it was given to me by Celestial Peony Fairy. What reason do you have to take something that belongs to me?" At this moment, Emperor Ziwei spoke up first. "It's understandable that you don't know some things. How about this, I'll give you a stone, but you won't get involved in this anymore." Ning Shu extended a hand. "Let me see what you have first. I heard you want a magic tool. I've already refined one." Emperor Ziwei brought out a red ribbon with a small bell attached to each end. This magic tool was quite beautiful, and it was especially suitable for female immortals. Ning Shu said, "I only want the stone, not the magic tool." Emperor Ziwei continued, "All right, I'll give you the stone, but you have to swear an oath to the heavenly Tao that you won't get involved in this anymore. Otherwise, you'll suffer divine retribution." Ning Shu. "Give me the stone, and I'll swear an oath." Emperor Ziwei turned to Emperor Qing Hua, who reluctantly tossed the stone to Ning Shu. Ning Shu quickly reached out and took the stone. It was a star stone. Ning Shu quickly put it away. "Then swear it." Emperor Qing Hua glared at Ning Shu with an unfriendly expression. All the other emperors were also staring at Ning Shu. Ning Shu coughed, raised his hand, and swore to the heavens, "From now on, I will not participate in this matter. If I violate it, the heavens will punish me." "That should be fine." The great emperor of Dongdo frowned. "Swear it again." "Swear again. Then give me another stone." "If I swear again, I'll be cursing myself again. How can I swear so casually?" Ning Shu retorted. Emperor Qing Hua was as enraged as a toad. "I really want to fucking kill you. I've never seen such a greedy Xian Yi. Fuck, there's a gender difference between greed and greed. A woman who takes the initiative to fight for what belongs to her is a slut, while a man who takes the initiative to fight for what belongs to him is a sign of ambition and ambition. Why don't you say something like that? I am that greedy, what are you going to do about it?" Ning Shu raised his chin and looked at the silent and aloof Emperor Changsheng. He really did want to fight Emperor Changsheng, but Emperor Qing Hua was the first to step forward. In reality, she had been provoking Emperor Changsheng this entire time, but Emperor Changsheng had always maintained a cold expression. A dog that bites doesn't bark, and a dog that barks doesn't bite. He had to pay more attention to Emperor Changsheng in the future. Ning Shu smelled the fragrance that had been lingering at the tip of his nose. Did Emperor Changsheng have feelings for Fairy Peony now? He wasn't going to accept missions like this again. The most uncontrollable thing in this world was the human heart, and the most unbearable thing was love. "Here's another stone. Swear it again." Emperor Ziwei tossed another stone to Ning Shu. Ning Shu hurriedly caught it and almost put it in his mouth. "I swear it with your name, as well as a specific punishment, such as dying a horrible death, never to be reincarnated," Emperor Ziwei said in a scholarly voice. "That vicious?" Ning Shu stowed the stone away. "I can't bear to curse myself like that." Emperor Changsheng looked at Ning Shu. "Even if you're arrogant, there's still a limit. Do you really think you can traverse the entire divine realm with your mediocre skills? Even if I can't, it's still very easy for me to take care of Emperor Qing Hua." Ning Shu spoke with a smile. Emperor Qing Hua harumphed coldly with a dark expression. Emperor Dongdo had been spectating this entire time, and he turned to Fairy Peony. "Little Peony, do you want to go to the human world with your accompanying weed? If you want to go to the human world, then I'll take you to the human world. You'll see the sceneries of the human world, eat the delicacies of the human world, and see how mortals live. Emperor Dong Do's appearance was very deceiving. He was a benevolent old man, and no one seemed to be able to refuse the request of a benevolent old man. The fairy peony was a little hesitant. Ning Shu released her. "All right, I'll take you to the human world. Emperor Dong Do is an old man, so I'm sure he won't drool at the sight of you like all the other male idols." Emperor Dong Do, the fairy peony stood rooted to the spot with a blank expression. Emperor Chongsheng turned to the fairy peony. "Come here. Don't be fooled by his flowery words." Ning Shu grabbed onto the fairy peony's hand. "Don't go over there. This emperor is actually just like all the other male idols. He has all kinds of feelings for you, but he puts on a cold and aloof facade. On the other hand, his heart is as hot as a volcano." The fairy peony stood still and allowed Ning Shu to hold on to her hand obediently. Emperor Chongsheng's face turned even colder. His whole body was releasing cold air. He looked at Ning Shu with a very sharp gaze. Ning Shu laughed. He pulled the fairy peony's hand and started running. "What's the point of being a servant in the immortal realm? It's better to go to the human world. There are many places in the human world. Come with me." "How dare you!" A huge hand reached for the fairy peony. It wanted to take her away. Ning Shu pulled the fairy peony back. His spirit chi formed a huge sword. Ning Shu swung the sword and cut the hand in half. Then he pulled the fairy peony and ran. At the end of the immortal realm, they reached the immortals' viewing platform. If they fell from the immortals' viewing platform, they would be in the human world. They would never be able to return to the immortal realm. Below the immortals' viewing platform was an endless cloud. Those who were afraid of heights would feel their legs go soft. Ning Shu and the fairy peony were forced to the edge of a cliff. The fairy peony held on to Ning Shu tightly. She was confused. "Why do we have to fight? If you go back, you'll be imprisoned. They might even do bad things to you." Ning Shu could only say so. The fairy peony smiled brightly. Petals fell around her. Flowers bloomed all around her. Even on the edge of a cliff, it was beautiful. Chapter 2389. I'll go wherever you go. "The female immortals here don't like me," the peony fairy said. Ning Shu. "No woman will like you no matter where you go." Beauty was a weapon. Ning Shu had seen it for himself. When beauty was a weapon, not many people could resist it. But the key was that not many people could have such extreme beauty. Ning Shu felt that the heavenly Tao had taken the peony fairy's feelings. Otherwise, she wouldn't feel anything when so many people adored her, nor would she like anyone. The four great emperors chased after them. When they saw Ning Shu and the peony fairy standing on the edge of the cliff, their expressions changed. The great emperor of Dongdo became more and more amiable. He said to the peony fairy, "Little peony, come here. Don't be crazy with this man. You know, if you jump from here, you'll no longer be an immortal. You'll become an ordinary mortal without the power to protect yourself. Those mortals will covet your beauty and hurt you. In the heavenly realm, no one will hurt you." Then the peony fairy hesitated again. To be exact, the peony fairy herself was not an opinionated person. Anyway, whatever the heavenly Tao said was right. Otherwise, she would have been swallowed up by others. Some women would be jealous, but more men would protect her. "Greenie, what do you think?" The peony fairy turned to Ning Shu and asked. "Ning Shu, just do what you think. I don't have the heart to cheat you. Then I'll go with you. How about we stop being immortals?" The peony fairy asked. Ning Shu, He was speechless. "Little peony, when you two jump from here, you'll no longer be immortals. You'll have no power. This Greenie you trust won't have the power to protect you. What's wrong with being in the heavenly realm? The great emperor of Dongdo said, no one will do anything to you too. In fact, the great emperor of Dongdo's words made sense. In the heavenly realm, the peony fairy was loved by all the male immortals and envied by all the female immortals. But when she came to the human world, she would definitely have to live a very bitter life. With such an appearance, she was destined to not be ordinary, but she went directly to the devil world. Moreover, the devil realm was also living very comfortably. Although the devil realm was poor in resources, the devil master would give whatever he wanted. If he was homesick, he would attack the heavenly realm and let him go home. Moreover, he would show the heavenly realm his ownership. He felt that the devil lord was the true love of the peony fairy. The male gods and great emperors of the god realm were all like fleeting clouds. Then are we in the god world? Ning Shu asked. Ning Shu, do you have any ideas of your own? He felt that it didn't matter where the peony fairy was. She had no desires. Her lack of desire made her even more mesmerizing. He placed the things in front of her and coaxed her. The four great emperors didn't dare to act rashly. No matter what, they had to keep the peony fairy in the god realm. They had to keep her under their nose and not let her go out of control. Ning Shu said to the peony fairy, you stay in the god realm. I'm going to jump down. If I stay in the god realm, the four great emperors won't let me go. I can't live in the god realm. Ning Shu was itching to jump off the immortals' viewing platform. The peony fairy immediately said, then I'll jump with you. Ning Shu, you really want to die with me? Everyone, the North Pole Emperor said elegantly, you stay in the god realm too. Today's matter is over. We won't pursue it. The peony fairy can't leave the god realm. Otherwise, wherever she goes, there will be war. Ning Shu's eyes turned. Peony, you stay here. I don't want to be a fairy in the god realm. It's too hard. I want to go to the human world. Emperor Chongsheng's expression was very cold. Emperor Ziwei immediately said, with your power, you don't need to be a fairy anymore. When the time comes, you can become a goddess and stay in the god realm with the peony fairy. Ning Shu felt like the four great emperors were truly being wronged. They had to compromise and indulge her for the sake of the stability of the god realm. Now that they had tricked the peony fairy into staying, she was definitely going to die a very painful death. Ning Shu and the others grinned and jumped off the immortals' viewing platform with the peony fairy in their arms. Come and catch me. The four great emperors' expressions shifted, and they hurriedly rushed to the edge of the cliff. However, they could no longer see the two of them. All they could see was a vast expanse of white mist. Emperor Qinghua's expression was extremely dark. How dare she, a lowly weed? What did you do to the maid in your palace? Why is she so distrustful of us? Emperor Ziwei's brows furrowed as he pulled out his divination book. In the end, he shook his head. Tribulation is upon us. Emperor Chongsheng's expression was as cold as ice. She's still holding a grudge against us for the 3 bolts of divine lightning. The most important thing now is to find the peony fairy and bring her back as soon as possible. Emperor Dongdo stroked his beard and said, we also have to make preparations to protect ourselves during this tribulation. Emperor Qinghua was extremely irritated. So what if we find her? Bring her back to the god realm and worship her. Why can't we just kill her? I really don't understand what's going on with the will of the heavens. Emperor Dongdo only replied, nothing lasts forever. The god realm has already reached the point of extinction. So that's the will of the heavens. Emperor Dongdo heaved a forlorn sigh. Kill the peony fairy, Emperor Qinghua said with irritation. Emperor Qinghua grumbled in a fit of rage. He had been defeated by the lowly Xian Yi and had lost all of his dignity, so why would he care about fairy peony? We can't. Emperor Chongsheng shook his head. So what if I did? Even if the heavenly Tao is going to give birth to a new heavenly mandate, it'll still take some time. Isn't it better to buy some time? It's just like Xian Yi said, you also. Emperor Qinghua wanted to lash out at everyone he saw. Emperor Chongsheng. I like her, but I don't want her to have anything to do with this. The Peony Fairy concerns the safety of the divine realm. Is this really the time to be discussing this? Emperor Chongsheng glared coldly at Emperor Qinghua. The small boat of friendship was about to capsize. Good friends were about to end their friendship. The four emperors decided to find the Peony Fairy through a special channel. Emperor Qinghua insisted on killing the Peony Fairy. Even if the Peony Fairy were to remain in the God realm, she would still cause unrest in the God realm. Not only did he want to kill the Peony Fairy, but he also wanted to tear that lowly weed into pieces, extract her spirit, and whip her for eternity. Only by destroying her spirit and making her unable to reincarnate could he vent the hatred in his heart. Everyone ignored Emperor Qinghua's incessant chatter. Emperor Ziwei divined the location where the two celestial maidens would appear in the human world. However, Emperor Ziwei was unable to see through the heavens, and he suffered a severe backlash as a result. Chapter 2390. Ning Shu jumped off the Immortal's viewing platform with the Peony Fairy in his arms. The wind whistled past the layers of clouds. He didn't know where they would land. The Peony Fairy was at a loss. Her hair was messed up by the wind. Being held by Ning Shu, she was only at a loss, not afraid. He didn't know how long it would take to fall to the mortal world, but Ning Shu felt that he had been in free fall for a long time. Taking the Peony Fairy away was to comply with the heavenly Tao, and to not give the immortal emperor a chance to interact with the Peony Fairy. He didn't want the immortal emperor to be infatuated with the Peony Fairy. He didn't know how the immortal emperor felt about the Peony Fairy, but if he had less time to interact with the Peony Fairy, he wouldn't be enveloped by the buff. The chances of falling in love with the Peony Fairy would be much lower. Ning Shu always felt that the heavenly Tao had calculated him. It was her. Ning Shu wasn't the client. The client was calculated by the heavenly Tao, and she was also calculated by the heavenly Tao. Fate was really a difficult thing to figure out. The falling speed was getting faster and faster. There were countless astral winds around. When they hit the body, it seemed that even the bones would be broken. This kind of astral wind should be able to kill a god. Even if the god didn't die, it would deprive the god of his power. Ning Shu pulled the Peony Fairy. The Peony Fairy's clothes had been cut open by the astral winds. The wounds were faintly stained with blood. Ning Shu hurriedly set up a barrier, but it was also broken by the astral winds. A huge astral wind came and directly swept the Peony Fairy away. Green. The Peony Fairy stretched out her hand and shouted to Ning Shu. Ning Shu was speechless. So the Peony Fairy was swept away and sent to the demon realm. Ning Shu just said, "You'll be fine." Really, Ning Shu didn't care about the Peony Fairy's safety at all. This guy was very lucky. Nothing would happen to him. He could live well wherever he went. The heavenly Tao wouldn't let him die before he completed his mission. The immortality buff was at the maximum. The Peony Fairy's figure flashed and was swept away by the astral wind, disappearing without a trace. The astral winds around him grew stronger and denser. Ning Shu's clothes were filled with cuts, and an inexplicable power was seeping into his body from the cuts, dissipating the power in his body. Moreover, the astral winds were still increasing in strength. It looked like they were about to kill Ning Shu. Ning Shu released the giant dragon and stood on its head. The giant dragon rushed down at an extremely fast speed. Ning Shu raised his middle finger at the heavenly Tao. Could it not burn the bridge a little more after crossing the river? Now that her mission had been accomplished, it was time for her to die. Even if he didn't die at the hands of the longevity immortal emperor, he should have died in the process of jumping onto the Immortals' viewing platform. Ning Shu set up one barrier after another on his body, enveloping himself and the golden dragon. He didn't know how far the Immortals' viewing platform was from the mortal realm. After falling for so long, they still hadn't reached it. Even a god would not be able to withstand it. Strong astral winds hit Ning Shu's body, especially when the astral winds cut through his skin. The astral winds would dissolve the power in his body. This kind of power would dissolve the power of a god, and from then on, he would become a powerless mortal. Not only that, but this kind of power would continue to wear down the power of a god, making him weaker and weaker. He would not even be able to compare to a mortal's body. In the end, he would die before reaching the age of a mortal. Ning Shu did not want his power to be worn down. After doing all this, if he did not have the power to protect himself, he would definitely be killed by the 4 emperors. Moreover, when the time came, he would be the driving force behind the gods and demons. When the entire god realm saw him, everyone would shout for him to be killed. The giant dragon's body was also cut by the astral winds. Once it touched the astral winds, it could not take back its spiritual energy. It was directly dissolved by the astral winds. Ning Shu was struck by a sense of foreboding. Even if he survived, he would not be able to cultivate again after his body was destroyed by the astral winds. He set up layers upon layers of vines, enchantments, and layers upon layers of turtle shells to protect himself. If he did not have any power, he could imagine the sinister smile on Emperor Qing Hua's face as he pinched his fingers together in an attempt to kill him. He could live without anything, but he could not live without power. When the time came, he would pin all the crimes on her head, and she would become an existence that the entire god realm wanted to kill. As long as he had power, there was nothing to fear. Ning Shu cursed the heavenly Tao in his heart. It looked like if the heavenly Tao wanted to kill him, he would either tear him to shreds or die of exhaustion. Ning Shu was as scared as he was when he jumped down. It was a pity that none of the emperors had jumped down with him. He was the only one who had to bear the brunt of this destruction. No, there was still the Peony Fairy. Perhaps the Peony Fairy had also been corroded by the astral winds. Even if she had been corroded, she would not die before completing her mission. The Demon Master was trying to conquer the God realm, and he was most likely trying to save the Peony Fairy's life. The Peony Fairy had also been pushed off the Immortals' viewing platform by the female Immortals, and the same thing would happen again. Once the God realm and the Demon realm began to fight, the Peony Fairy would be slowly corroded. Ning Shu massaged his own head. There were some things that the Demon Master did not know. Perhaps the Peony Fairy's life would also be slowly fading away while the God realm and the Demon realm were in full swing. Ning Shu's mind was a complete mess. The astral winds were becoming more and more powerful. He just wanted to know when he would be able to land on the ground. Ning Shu flared up in his heart. Is there an end to this? Ning Shu froze the water into a thick layer of ice. What does letting an ant like me live have to do with you? In the eyes of the heavenly Tao, she was just an ant. Seeing as she was already a pawn, it was fine to abandon her. There was no need to take her life. The giant dragon under him accelerated its descent and finally broke through a barrier. It was as if they had entered another world. This world did not have as much spiritual energy as the God realm, nor did it have the fragrance of flowers and birds. Moreover, it was an ancient plain. The giant dragon carried Ning Shu and landed on a mountain range. The huge impact caused the whole mountain range to tremble. Ning Shu fanned the dust with his hand and coughed. He found himself standing in a big pit. His body was badly shaken and his internal organs were injured. Ning Shu spat out a mouthful of blood, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and took out a jade bottle. He poured out an immortal pill with golden pill patterns on its surface and a burst of pill fragrance. He could not feel it in the God realm, but when he took out the pill in the human world, the pill fragrance drifted far away. Ning Shu hurriedly stuffed the pill into his mouth, lest the fragrance of the pill attract any mountain spirits. Now he had to concentrate on dealing with the remaining power of the astral winds in his body. This kind of power was nibbling away the power in his body and weakening his body. He was afraid that the Peony Fairy's current situation was not very good. The pill turned into a force and integrated into his body. The wounds on his body healed at once. Chapter 2391. Although her flesh wounds had healed, the hidden power in her body hadn't dissipated. If this power couldn't be eliminated, although she was an immortal, she would slowly weaken in age. Even the power she cultivated would be devoured and dissipated. The Peony Fairy was still in the devil world. The power system of the devil world was different from that of the god world. When a god came to the devil world, most of their power would be contaminated. Thinking about it, the Peony Fairy's situation wasn't very good. Previously, he only knew that the devil master of the devil world gave the Peony Fairy whatever she wanted. He even started a war with the god world because of this. There were other hidden things. Ning Shu touched his chin. When his body's problem was solved, should he go to the devil world to find the Peony Fairy? Ning Shu felt the power in her body flowing away, just like an hourglass, her power dissipating. What he needed to do now was to eliminate this power in his body. Ning Shu looked up and saw an endless mountain range. Ning Shu flew out of the pit and sensed that many mountain spirits had gathered around her in just a short while. There was also a ginseng with 2 leaves on its head and a monkey. All of them were hiding in the dark to observe her. They were probably attracted by the fragrance of the immortal pill. Legend had it that one could become an immortal after eating one. What was the point of becoming an immortal? Now that the god world was gone, those gods had no place. Even the gods who barely survived could only live in the mortal world. Ning Shu walked slowly with a long line of mountain spirits following behind her. She guessed that these mountain spirits wanted to eat her. He wasn't an immortal peach or an immortal pill. He was just a grass. It was useless to eat him. It was only because she grew up in the divine realm that she was able to take human form. The mountain spirits behind her all had better roots than her. However, she was born in the mortal world where spiritual energy was thin. This was something that could not be helped. If she wanted to ascend to the divine realm, the chances were a little slim. The god world was another space of this plane. It was a subsidiary space of this plane. The devil world existed independently of this plane. He felt that the heavenly Tao wanted to destroy these 2 spaces. Maybe this space affected the plane, or the plane couldn't bear the burden, so it decided to be destroyed. It was as if 2 tumors had grown in his body. He didn't feel anything for a short period of time, but as time passed, the tumor would affect his health. Ning Shu found a cave, which was probably the home of a bear. The moment he entered, there was a foul smell, and there were some white bones under his feet. It would be better to sleep on a tree branch than to live in such a place. Ning Shu pointed his finger and water immediately gushed out, washing away all the animal bones and human bones out of the cave. Even the feces and other filthy things in the cave were flushed out. Only then could the cave breathe again. The water droplets evaporated. Ning Shu walked into the cave and set up a barrier around the cave, blocking the mountain monsters outside. Some of them hit the barrier and were sent flying. Ning Shu began to control the inexplicable power in his body. The spirit chi that Ning Shu absorbed was devoured by this power and began to dissipate. Ning Shu looked inside his body and scanned his body inch by inch with his mental power. What kind of power made his body unable to store energy? After checking again, he didn't find anything. Ning Shu was confused. Could it be that his body had become a funnel? Impossible. His meridians and dantian were fine. There was no damage, but why couldn't he store any spirit chi? And the spirit chi that was originally stored in his dantian was slowly decreasing. What was going on? It was a bit weird. Ning Shu didn't give up. He scanned his body again and again, checking his dantian and the complicated meridians of the human body. Especially the meridians of the body, he checked them one by one. High concentration consumed a lot of mental power. There were so many meridians in the body. Ning Shu only checked a little and was already so tired that he wanted to vomit milk. When he opened his eyes again, the sky was already dark. There were some peaches outside the barrier, and a monkey was squatting beside them. Ning Shu removed a little bit of the barrier and said to the monkey, "Come in." The monkey immediately jumped happily and chirped. He walked into the barrier with a few peaches in his arms. When he arrived at the cave, he held the peaches and walked into the cave on his knees. As soon as the monkey saw Ning Shu, he immediately began to make a comical bow. He knelt on the ground and bowed, then handed the peach to Ning Shu with both hands. This peach was quite big, but it was not as fresh as the peaches in the divine world that grew up in the spirit chi. Ning Shu took the peach, and the monkey's dark eyes flashed with hope. The monkey was smart and wanted to use a few peaches to exchange for immortal pills. Ning Shu touched the peach. It was estimated that the peach had been washed. There was no hair on it. Ning Shu took a bite. It was quite sweet. When the monkey saw Ning Shu eat it, he was very happy. He raised another peach for Ning Shu. Ning Shu finished the peach and threw away the pit. He said directly, "You can't become an immortal just by eating immortal pills. Not becoming an immortal now is the best choice. As long as one was a god or a fairy, they would have to face the cleansing of the heavenly Tao. They would be free in the human world and would not be remembered by the heavenly Tao. Moreover, even if they became an immortal, when they reached the divine world, they would be weak and could only be servants or mounts. It was not that good." When the monkey heard Ning Shu's words, his bright eyes dimmed. He chirped in a low voice, looking very pitiful. Ning Shu could not help but laugh. This monkey was actually pretending to be pitiful. Ning Shu said, "I came from the divine world, but the divine world is not that good. How about this, I will teach you a set of breathing techniques. Anyway, your cultivation will be more powerful." Although the monkey was disappointed that it didn't get the secret manual, it was still very happy that it got the celestial art to cultivate. It hurriedly bowed to Ning Shu. Ning Shu tapped its forehead with a finger, then told it to leave the peach behind and leave. After the monkey left, Ning Shu restored the barrier. He finished all the peaches and was in a bad mood. He wanted to eat more. He had to quickly solve the problem of his body. Ning Shu began to check his meridians again. He checked every corner of his body, even his hair. In the end, Ning Shu looked at the ceiling in a daze. What was the problem? There was clearly no problem with his body, but his strength and vitality were dissipating. Ning Shu rubbed his swollen temples. He was very tired. He wanted to sleep, but Ning Shu suspected that he would become an old woman if he woke up. Ning Shu touched the peach beside him and realized that he had finished eating it. During the time he was in the human world, Ning Shu had been looking for the problem with his body. However, as his vitality and strength dissipated, Ning Shu still could not find the problem. If this dragged on, the strength that she had painstakingly cultivated would be almost depleted. Without strength, how would she be able to face the upcoming changes? Chapter 2392. Most importantly, when there was no power to support such a collapse, the vitality in her body would begin to collapse. Her body would become weak, and in the end, she would die. The monkey sent some fruits every day. If it was not peaches, it was other wild fruits. In any case, Ning Shu could not name them. The taste was not bad. Ning Shu now needed to eat to maintain the energy in his body and resist the nameless power to dissipate his vitality. Every time the monkey sent something, Ning Shu would eat it clean. Other than cultivating, he would constantly check his body. The spiritual energy in the mortal world could not be compared to the God realm. Naturally, his cultivation could not catch up to the God realm. In addition, his strength was still constantly dissipating. Ning Shu felt that his strength was getting weaker and weaker. He was also getting more and more panicked. However, Ning Shu tried his best to suppress his panic. He carefully checked his body, meridians, and blood vessels. Meridians and blood vessels were two different concepts. There were many blood vessels in the body. It was a big project to check all of them. There was no problem with his dantian and meridians. Ning Shu could not figure out what the problem was. He began to check the blood vessels. Starting from the heart, he checked them one by one. Then, a cycle returned to the heart. One by one, the blood vessels returned to the heart. Just like that, over and over again. Ning Shu really found something strange. There was a strand that seemed to be a hair, but it was even thinner than a hair. It was mixed in the blood vessels. It was undetectable and not easy to detect. It flowed through the body along with the blood flow. Then, it flowed out of the heart and returned to the heart. It was like a black thread. It was very short. What was this? No matter what it was, he had to get it out. Who knew if there was any harm in leaving it in the body? Ning Shu separated a small amount of spiritual energy to force this black thread-like thing out of the body. However, this thing seemed to have sensed danger and swam around in the blood in Ning Shu's body. Convinced, what the hell was this? A chase was carried out in Ning Shu's body. Ning Shu separated more spiritual energy and used it to entangle the black thread. However, the moment the spiritual energy touched the black thread, it dissipated. Ning Shu, oh, he had finally found the culprit. It had to be this thing. What was it? How do I get him out and bleed him dry? Ning Shu tried to use the law of water, using the water in his blood to set up a barrier to trap the black silk. The water in the blood set up a barrier. The barrier was very small and trapped Hei Si inside. However, the barrier was quickly destroyed by Hei Si. Then, Hei Si fled inside the body and didn't come out. This made Ning Shu speechless. Ning Shu closed his eyes and sensed the blood in his body. Since blood was water, he should be able to sense it. After discovering the direction of the black thread, he used a barrier to trap the black thread. He used a thick barrier to trap it and directly pierced his arm, causing blood to flow out. The black substance that was wrapped in the barrier flowed out along with the blood. Ning Shu quickly took out a bottle and put it in. He wanted to ask what it was when he returned. A tiny black strand swam in the bottle. Ning Shu put the bottle away and ate an immortal pill to replenish his vitality. Speaking of which, these bottles of immortal pills were given to him by the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu sighed in his heart. However, he cultivated even faster. During this period of time, his body was in a state of not being able to make ends meet. Now that he didn't have the black thread, when he cultivated, all the spiritual chi was stored in his dantian. It wouldn't disappear for no reason. Ning Shu put away the bottle. Not only that, she also added an extra layer of enchantment to prevent herself from accidentally breaking the bottle. The black color then drilled into her body. Although the spiritual chi was not as good as the divine realm, with a spirit gathering array, the spiritual chi was still good. Moreover, he was in the deep mountains and forests. The spiritual chi was enough for Ning Shu to cultivate. After cultivating in the mountains, Ning Shu didn't know how long. When he opened his eyes again, he felt that his body was full of energy. He suddenly felt fearless and full of confidence. GG. The monkey outside brought food to Ning Shu. With the monkey as an example, some monsters in the mountains also imitated the monkey and sent things to Ning Shu. Some of the things placed outside the barrier were already rotten. During this period of time, Ning Shu didn't eat anything. He didn't need to eat anything. Ning Shu called the monkey in. The monkey's black eyes turned. Feeling Ning Shu's powerful aura, it immediately knelt down and made a comical bow to Ning Shu. I want to leave here. You don't have to send things anymore. Ning Shu thought about it and went to the devil realm to find the peony fairy. He just didn't know how she was now. Her mission had been completed. Her life was saved. He just didn't know how the immortal emperor felt about the peony fairy. In fact, love wasn't that important. When the divine realm no longer existed, there was no such thing as a humble mentality. The surviving gods could only hide in the mortal world. They also had to constantly be watched by the heavenly Tao. A sorrowful expression appeared on the monkey's furry face upon hearing that Ning Shu was going to leave. He was extremely reluctant to part with immortal pills. The mountain spirits had a strange obsession with the immortal pills of the divine realm. They had heard too much about how one could ascend to immortality and ascend to the divine realm after consuming the immortal pills. In any case, it was an obsession. Ning Shu just wanted to say that the people of the divine realm didn't need to cultivate. They just needed to consume immortal pills every day. These immortal pills could replenish vital energy for the gods and immortals of the divine realm, but they were a lot more effective for normal people. However, they definitely couldn't become an immortal just by consuming them. Ziwei divined this direction. A male voice sounded from outside. Ning Shu found this voice to be very familiar. It couldn't be Emperor Qinghua, could it? The little monkey also heard the voice and turned toward Ning Shu. Ning Shu waved his hand and gestured for him to leave. Don't get too close to this place. The little monkey wouldn't be able to handle the shockwaves from their battle. The little monkey obediently ran out of the cave. Emperor Qinghua and Emperor Chongqing didn't pay much attention to the fleeing monkey. It was just an ant that was passing by. Ning Shu tidied herself up and washed herself with water. After making sure that she looked radiant, she walked out of the cave. She looked up at the two great emperors and greeted them with a smile. Long time no see. Emperor Qinghua chuckled. Weed, how did it feel to jump off the immortals' viewing platform? It must have been quite uncomfortable, right? Ning Shu also chuckled. It was very satisfying. It's a pity that you didn't jump off the platform. Otherwise, you would have experienced a different kind of satisfaction. Ning Shu could sense from their auras that they hadn't come from the immortals' viewing platform. Instead, they had come to the mortal world through some other passageway. Ning Shu looked at the two emperors with an expression that said, "You're the one who got the short end of the stick." So stubborn, Emperor Qinghua said with a disdainful expression, thinking that Ning Shu was just putting on a brave front. Chapter 2393. Emperor Qinghua and Ning Shu were bickering with one another, but Emperor Chongqing couldn't find the peony fairy anywhere. He turned to Ning Shu with a cold expression. "Where's the peony fairy?" Ning Shu splayed his hands open. "I don't know. Even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. Some things needed time to ferment." "Where is she? Where is the peony fairy?" Emperor Qinghua asked. Ning Shu gave an honest reply. "I jumped down with the peony fairy in my arms, but she was swept away by the wind. I don't know where she was swept away to." "Really?" Emperor Qinghua's brows furrowed. Disbelief was written all over his face. "I can swear to the heavens that the peony fairy really was swept away by the wind and we were separated. Otherwise, please let my soul dissipate." Ning Shu was telling the truth. He wasn't afraid of swearing at all. Emperor Qinghua's chest constricted. "Your swearing is like a fart to me." "I have to be elegant," Ning Shu replied. Emperor Chongqing's expression was as cold as ice. He scanned the entire mountain range with his divine sense, but he couldn't find any trace of the peony fairy, nor could he detect her aura. If the peony fairy had stayed in a place for a long time, then there would be a fragrant scent lingering around that place. If the peony fairy really was with the grass, then that scent wouldn't have dissipated. Emperor Chongqing spoke in a cold voice, "Do you know how much trouble you've caused? Everything that's happened to the divine realm is all because of you." Ning Shu pursed his lips. "That's enough. The divine realm should have faced this tribulation, but you're blaming everything on me? Then why don't you think about why the divine realm has to face this tribulation?" Ning Shu rolled her eyes. "No matter how you look at me, I'm like a weed. You're just putting all these hats on my head." Emperor Qinghua turned to Emperor Chongqing. "Looks like she really isn't here. Then where did the peony fairy go?" Emperor Chongqing nodded. "Let's look in the human world again. If we can't find her, then, we'll go to the demon realm." When Emperor Chongqing mentioned the demon realm, he stared at Ning Shu, but Ning Shu just smiled and didn't say anything. The longevity immortal emperor's gaze was like an icy blade, so sharp that it was hard to maintain a straight face. "Look at me. I don't know where she went either." Emperor Qinghua looked at Ning Shu with a cold smile. "Then take this weed back and whip him. He'll open his mouth one day." Emperor Chongqing said casually. She was not important. The most important thing was to find the lost peony fairy. This location had been divined by Emperor Ziwei. Emperor Ziwei had suffered a backlash from his divination, and it took him a long time to find this location. No wonder he could divine it because the peony fairy wasn't here. If the peony fairy was here, he wouldn't be able to see the mysteries of heaven. Who the hell would want to know the whereabouts of a stalk of grass? Damn it! Ning Shu floated into the air and stood on the tip of a tree before facing Emperor Qinghua. "Are you sure you want to take me back and whip me?" Emperor Qinghua asked upon seeing Ning Shu float into the air. "You haven't become immortal?" "Ning Shu, I feel like I've become stronger." Ning Shu rolled up his sleeves and looked at Emperor Chongqing. "How about we have a battle? I'll show you what I'm capable of." "Emperor Chongqing, you're bluffing, Qinghua." This meant that he wanted Qinghua to fight him. Qinghua was a little hesitant. It was one thing to lose face the first time, but what if he lost face again? Emperor Qinghua wasn't going to attack regardless of whether he was bluffing or not. "In order to make up for your mistake, you have to come with us to find the peony fairy. Otherwise, you'll never be able to return to the divine realm." Emperor Qinghua raised his chin with a haughty expression. Ning Shu was a little surprised. "Why would I go back to the divine realm? The human world is so much better." He could find a mountain and become the king of the mountain. It would feel great to have a bunch of mountain spirits as his underlings. Why would he go back to serve others? There was nothing in this world that was as comfortable as freedom. The divine realm was perhaps a good place, but Ning Shu didn't really care about it. Qinghua chuckled coldly. "Keep pretending. Do you want the two of us to drag you away, or do you want to come with us?" Emperor Chongqing asked coldly. "I like it when you guys drag me away." Ning Shu spoke with a grin. He had wanted to fight Emperor Chongqing for a long time. After all, Ning Shu still remembered the 3 bolts of divine lightning. He had to go with these two. They were going to find the peony fairy, and Ning Shu also wanted to go. However, he couldn't just be a servant who served them tea. There was nothing that couldn't be resolved with a battle. If that didn't work, then he would just have to fight again. "You're a fairy of the immortal palace, but you're trying to rebel just because you have some power." Ning Shu looked at longevity immortal emperor in surprise. "Didn't you become immortal emperors with your own strength? You have the strength to become immortal emperors. Why must I be a little fairy at your beck and call? If you want to fight, then I'll grant you your wish." Emperor Chongqing attacked Ning Shu first, and a powerful pressure surged toward Ning Shu. Ning Shu's expression remained unchanged as he received the attack. The two of them exchanged blows, and the shockwaves from their battle uprooted all of the trees around them. One crater after another was smashed into the ground by the shockwaves. The little monkey nearby was trembling with fear as he hugged the branch of the tree tightly to prevent himself from being swept away. So, these are gods. What a powerful force. Emperor Qinghua's brows furrowed as he looked on from the sidelines. This weed had jumped off the Immortals' viewing platform and was fine. All of the Immortals who jumped off the Immortals' viewing platform would become powerless mortals without any exception, and they wouldn't be able to live for long. The Immortals' viewing platform was a forbidden place for Immortals. Why did this weed still have power? This didn't make any fucking sense. Emperor Qinghua wanted to capture it and whip its soul, but it was a little difficult to do that. Should he tie it up with an immortal binding rope? Ning Shu and Emperor Chongqing's battle was still raging, and it was becoming more and more intense. The surrounding forest was about to be razed to the ground. Emperor Qinghua had no choice but to mediate between the two of them. Why didn't anyone intervene when he was fighting Emperor Chongqing? Alright, stop fighting. Chongqing, you can take care of this unimportant person at any time. The most important thing now is to find Peony. Find Peony, stop fighting, Emperor Qinghua said in a feeble voice. Emperor Chongqing harumphed coldly and stopped. Ning Shu also stopped. Ning Shu estimated Emperor Chongqing's power and found that he was at least 10% more powerful than Emperor Qinghua. As for Emperor Dongdo and Emperor Ziwei, they had never fought before, so there was no way to compare them. Emperor Chongqing remained silent with a cold expression. Emperor Qinghua could only say, "You have to come with us. This is your fault." "I can come with you, but I definitely won't admit that this is my fault." "This is the will of the heavens," Ning Shu retorted. Chapter 2394. The three of them worked together to search for the Peony Fairy. Emperor Ziwei had suffered a backlash from divining the whereabouts of the Peony Fairy, and the Peony Fairy had been concealed from the heavens, so no one knew where she was. Ning Shu was the only one who knew where she was, and he was extremely frustrated. However, he felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction at the sight of the two emperors. Thankfully, the three of them were all immortals, so traveling was a piece of cake for them. They arrived at a place in no time and began to search for the Peony Fairy. They smelled her unique fragrance and sensed her aura. All of the immortals had different auras. They sniffed around like dogs every time they arrived at a place, and it was quite a perverted sight. Along the way, Emperor Qinghua kept staring at Ning Shu. Ning Shu gave him a sideways glance. "What are you looking at?" "Emperor Qinghua, what's wrong with looking at you?" "Ning Shu, why don't you keep looking?" "Emperor Qinghua, I'll keep looking." Usually, this kind of conversation was meant to be a fight. Ning Shu flicked his sleeves with a grin. "You want to know why I haven't become immortal, right?" Emperor Qinghua gave him a sideways glance, and even Emperor Chongqing glanced at Ning Shu. The Immortals' viewing platform was the tomb of all immortals. Without exception, all of the immortals who had jumped off the Immortals' viewing platform had died. Why was this weed still intact? Could it be that there was something special about it? "Ning Shu, I'm not going to tell you. Also, don't mess with me, or I'll let you have a taste of what it's like to jump off the Immortals' viewing platform." Ning Shu thought of the black strands in the vial. Even though he didn't know what they were indeed wearing away at the energy within her body. If he were to use them on either of these two, they would definitely die from exhaustion. However, Ning Shu was more interested in what they were. What kind of chemical reaction would occur if you were to toss them into the law of nothingness? Hence, Ning Shu felt like it would be a waste to use them on these two. It would be better to just knock them out and toss them off the Immortals' viewing platform. It took him a lot of effort to get it out of his body. Emperor Qinghua looked at Ning Shu as if he were looking at a scumbag. Ning Shu chuckled lightly and completely ignored Emperor Qinghua. Go ahead and fight me if you can. Emperor Qinghua chuckled coldly and ignored Ning Shu. Emperor Chongsheng was a man of few words, so he was definitely not going to take the initiative to ask questions. If Ning Shu were to take the initiative to ask, then it would be more appropriate. He probably felt that talking to Ning Shu was beneath him. He spent a lot of time, more than a year in the mortal world, but he still couldn't find the Peony Fairy. Even if he was an immortal, he would still be disgraced by such torment. Emperor Chongsheng frowned and said, if it's not in the human world, then it's in the demon world. The devil realm, this is the situation that we don't want to see the most. Emperor Qinghua looked at Ning Shu with a resigned expression. Why do I feel like you know that the Peony Fairy is in the demon world? Ning Shu. You're overthinking things. Even Emperor Ziwei couldn't divine where the Peony Fairy was, so how would I know? Emperor Qinghua spoke with certainty, my intuition tells me that you're hiding something from us. Ning Shu, Io, when did our hearts connect? You can still feel that there's something in my heart. You're still joking around in a moment of life and death. You're an immortal as well, shouldn't you do something for the divine realm that you were born in? Emperor Qinghua glowered at Ning Shu. Ning Shu immediately replied, all right, the Peony Fairy is in the demon world. Then why didn't you say so earlier? Emperor Qinghua chuckled coldly. She's not in the human world anyway. If she's not in the demon world, then why would she be in the divine realm? Ning Shu countered. Emperor Qinghua panted heavily as he glared at Ning Shu with the urge to beat him up. Emperor Chongsheng dragged the enraged Emperor Qinghua back. Let's go to the demon world and find her. Emperor Qinghua immediately calmed down, but his brows furrowed upon hearing this. I really don't want to go to that place. It's so uncomfortable. Ning Shu didn't have any objections. In any case, she could just follow along. After arriving at the demon world, they could go straight to the demon lord's palace to find the Peony Fairy. The demon lord was the supreme ruler of the demon world, and there were many demonic women who wanted to become his women. Hence, the Peony Fairy was a complete idiot when it came to scheming. Emperor Chongsheng led the two of them to a mountain range. There was a cave within the mountain range that was sealed with talismans. A sinister aura emanated from within the cave, and it was filled with the stench of blood and gore. It felt as if one were to pry open the rock, black and red blood would flow out from within. Emperor Chongsheng opened the talismans, and an extremely sinister aura swept toward them. Ning Shu felt as if his entire body had been contaminated by this aura. Emperor Qinhua's brows furrowed. Only a place like the demon world should disappear. It was far too disgusting. Hurry up and come in. Emperor Chongsheng led the way in, and he immediately spoke upon seeing Ning Shu and Emperor Qinhua still standing at the entrance. Emperor Qinhua hesitated momentarily before going in. You're not allowed to plot against me. I'm not that kind of person. If I want to beat you up, I'll beat you up fair and square, Ning Shu replied. Emperor Qinhua felt like Xian Yi was the most detestable of all celestial maidens. Ning Shu went in as well. Emperor Chongsheng blocked the stone and pasted talismans on it. He even pasted a few more talismans on it. If the human world was contaminated by demonic energy, then the divine realm would also be contaminated. The passageway was very narrow, and Emperor Chongsheng led the way. Emperor Qinhua followed behind, and Ning Shu brought up the rear. Ning Shu had been feeling quite uncomfortable ever since he entered the passageway. He was surrounded by demonic energy instead of spiritual energy. Perhaps it was because he was a plant that he was more sensitive to his surroundings. After walking for a long while, Ning Shu coughed lightly. When will we reach the demon world? The passageway was very quiet, so Ning Shu's sudden outburst was a little frightening. Emperor Qinhua's heart constricted slightly. Why are you being so loud? I'm being very quiet. I just want to know when we'll reach the demon world. Ning Shu felt as if Emperor Qing Hua was about to explode at any moment. Where was his self-restraint? He had lived for so many years. After walking for an indeterminate amount of time, the demonic energy became more and more abundant. They finally exited the passageway. Ning Shu looked around at the demon world. The entire demon world was a dark red hue, and there seemed to be a red sun in the sky. However, the light it radiated was a dark red color, which made the demon world appear even more sinister and terrifying. It was a very oppressive place. There were all sorts of strange things growing on the black soil, as well as some strange insects. The divine realm was filled with countless auspicious signs, but the demon world was the complete opposite. Chapter 2395. Ning Shu was content to be their little tail. As for where they were going, that was up to the two of them to decide. Ning Shu obviously wasn't going to say that he was going to the Demon Lord Palace to find Fairy Peony. Emperor Qing Hua stroked his chin as he looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu replied calmly, "Don't look at me with those perverted eyes. Where do you think Fairy Peony would be?" "You two grew up in the same place," Emperor Qing Hua asked Ning Shu. "Ning Shu, just because I grew up in the same place doesn't mean I should know where she is." What kind of logic was that? Emperor Changsheng paused for a moment before replying, "Let's go to the Demon Lord Palace." Emperor Changsheng glanced at Ning Shu as he spoke. "Ning Shu. Why are you two staring at me?" Thus, Ning Shu and the others discovered that they couldn't fly in the demon realm. Were they going to have to walk on two pairs of feet? This place was so desolate, so it had to be very far away from the palace. Emperor Qing Hua pulled out his flying magic tool, only to discover that the dense demonic qi in the air would corrode the magic tool. Emperor Qing Hua's brows furrowed. The demon realm really is a detestable place. Ning Shu laughed heartily before releasing a golden dragon. He leaped onto the golden dragon's head and looked down at the two of them from above. "I'm going to go now. You two have to follow me. You're going to run away first." Emperor Qin Hua was dumbstruck. How could he be so cold, heartless, and unreasonable? Emperor Changsheng's face had already turned into a square block of ice. Ning Shu said, "If you want to, sure. But you'll have to pay for the ride." Emperor Qin Hua looked at Ning Shu with a disdainful expression. Ning Shu's face was so thick that even a laser couldn't penetrate it. Emperor Qin Hua's gaze was completely ineffective on Ning Shu. 2 outer heavenly stones per person. Ning Shu extended a hand with a smile. "Emperor Qin Hua, we can go now." "Then you guys can go." Ning Shu said without a care, "I'm leaving first." Ahahaha, Ning Shu laughed heartily. Emperor Changsheng looked at Ning Shu expressionlessly, took out 2 outer space stones, and threw them to Ning Shu. Ning Shu hurriedly took the stone and put it away with a smile. He patted the golden dragon and said, "You can come up now." "What about you? Are you coming up or walking?" Ning Shu turned to Emperor Qin Hua. "This place is so desolate. Do you know where the Demon Lord's palace is?" Emperor Qin Hua reluctantly pulled out 2 stones and stuffed them into Ning Shu's hands before sitting down on the golden dragon's back. Ning Shu was grinning from ear to ear. "Sit tight. Let's go. By the way, which way is the palace?" Ning Shu stood on the giant dragon's head and turned to ask the two of them. "Emperor Qin Hua, give me back those 2 stones, and I'll tell you." "That doesn't matter. I'm not in a hurry to find Fairy Peony, so let's sit here and play. However, the longer we drag this out, the more my spiritual energy will be polluted. Look, the golden dragon's color has dimmed. Once all the spiritual energy has been polluted, none of us will be able to leave." Emperor Qin Hua. "You're the greediest female immortal I've ever seen. How did someone like you ascend to immortality?" "That way." Emperor Changsheng pointed in an east-west direction. Ning Shu immediately headed in that direction. The golden dragon flew through the dark clouds, and the closer they got to the palace, the denser the demonic chi became. Devilish beings were naturally imbued with demonic chi, and there were many beings from the demon realm gathered around the palace, so the demonic chi was extremely dense. The palace was very luxurious. It was a massive city with black walls, and it was quite a spectacular sight to behold. Ning Shu looked down at the dim golden dragon to find that even the spiritual energy had been polluted by demonic chi. He sped up toward the most luxurious palace at the center of the city. Ning Shu yelled, "Peony, I'm Lu Yi, I'm here to find you." Ning Shu's chi sank into his dantian. His voice was extremely loud, spreading throughout the entire palace. Emperor Chongsheng, Emperor Qinghua, what the fuck? Was this guy retarded? The three of them had barged into someone else's territory, and he was yelling so loudly. Was he afraid that no one would know that they were here? Emperor Qinhua's expression was wooden. He felt like this weed was a weirdo from the divine realm. Was it because of his lowly origins? This didn't seem like the style of beings from the divine realm at all. At the very least, he should have made an impression so that others would discover him instead of yelling like this. Following Ning Shu's yell, all of the demon generals and soldiers in the palace began to gather like ants as they stared up at the golden dragon in the sky. It's beings from the divine realm. What are they doing here? These guards of the palace were wearing close-fitting clothes that looked like leather wallets. Below them was a leather skirt that exposed their arms and held spears in their hands. They looked similar to humans, but these people from the devil realm had black horns on their heads and black lips. It was as if they were wearing heavy makeup. If the immortal realm walked the path of floating immortals and drinking dewdrops, then the devil realm walked the path of demonic charm and wildness. Humph. A loud cold snort was heard, and then a man with long hair floated up. He was wearing a long black robe embroidered with golden silk. He was very handsome, and his rhombus-shaped jet-black lips gave him an evil charm. Chongsheng, Qinghua, what are you two doing in my territory? The demon master glared at the two of them. As for Ning Shu, he was the driver. Chongsheng pursed his lips. Emperor Qinghua replied, I'm here to look for someone. Someone from the divine realm has come here. Beings from the divine realm can't survive here. Qinghua, have you been kicked in the head by a donkey? I'll let you off the hook this time. Piss off, or I'll take a stroll around the divine realm. The demon master was very displeased that these two emperors had come here. And they were going to take Peony away. Dream on. Emperor Qinghua almost choked on his own rage. Fuck, he always spoke nicely to people, but these two were all shooting daggers at him. Who the hell had he offended? Emperor Chongsheng stood on the golden dragon's back with a cold expression. You're here to look for someone. Peony is in your hands, right? She's Fairy Peony, a being from the divine realm, so she should return to the two divine realms. The demon master pulled out a chair and sat down in midair. He propped his face up with his hand and sat down on the chair, exuding a devilish aura. Who knows how many celestial maidens there are in the divine realm? 2 emperors are here to look for a single celestial maiden. Could it be that there's something special about this celestial maiden? Besides, don't come to the demon realm every time you lose something, the demon master said calmly. Even if there are many celestial maidens in the divine realm, they should be in the divine realm. Are you trying to steal a celestial maiden from the divine realm? Emperor Chongsheng glowered at the demon master. She's just a celestial maiden. I can take over the entire divine realm if I want. The demon master didn't deny the fact that Fairy Peony was here. Chapter 2396. The demon lord admitted that she was here, but he didn't say that he would send her back. Greenery. The Peony fairy was helped out of the palace by 2 curvy witches. When she saw Ning Shu on the golden dragon, she immediately waved and shouted. The demon lord, who had been leisurely, saw the peony fairy come out of the palace. He immediately stood up and shouted at the two witches who were supporting the peony fairy, "Who allowed you to take her out? You're courting death." The two witches immediately knelt down and kept begging for mercy. The cleavage in front of their chests was spectacular. Moreover, the witches were wearing clothes that exposed their midriffs. Their figures were hot. "This fairy asked us to take her out." "Yes, yes, demon lord, if you don't believe me, you can ask the fairy." The demon lord sneered, "Don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. You want her to leave, right? I said that as long as she serves in the palace, you're not allowed to bully her." The two witches knelt on the ground and trembled. They kept begging for mercy and kept saying that the fairy asked them to do it. But the demon lord didn't forgive the witches. The more they explained, the angrier the demon lord became. Stupid. The last thing he wanted was to let the two immortals see the peony fairy. Damn it. The demon lord directly squeezed the two witches' heads in the air. The three people on the golden dragon looked on indifferently. The two great emperors were expressionless. The demon lord killed their own people. It was none of their business. The peony fairy was shocked. Her face was pale. The demon lord looked a little angry. He hurriedly let the guards drag the corpse down and feed it to the demonic insects. "Don't be afraid. I know what these people are thinking. They just saw that someone from the immortal realm came, so they brought you out to let the people from the immortal realm take you away." After killing people, the demon lord changed his face quickly. He was murderous before, but now he was gentle and infatuated. The peony fairy looked at Ning Shu on the golden dragon. Greenery. Ning Shu jumped down from the golden dragon. He ignored the demon lord's steel-like eyes and walked to the front of the peony fairy. He looked her up and down. "Are you okay?" The peony fairy smiled. It was so bright that the dark immortal realm seemed to brighten up. Seeing the peony fairy's smile, the devil lord glared at Ning Shu even more fiercely. "I thought we would never meet again. I landed in the demon realm, where did you land?" The peony fairy began to chat with Ning Shu, completely ignoring the surrounding environment and atmosphere. Ning Shu said, "I landed in the human world." The peony fairy smiled. "That's great." The tall and strong demon lord stood between Ning Shu and the peony fairy, blocking their conversation. The peony fairy said to the devil lord, "Can you step aside? You are blocking the green." The devil master's expression instantly looked like it was going to destroy the heavens and exterminate the earth. Ning Shu moved to the side, tilted his body, and said to Peony behind the devil master, "Do you want to return to the god realm with us?" "Okay." The peony fairy said without thinking. "Demon master." The devil lord's expression changed from destructive to hopeless. He looked at the peony fairy in shock. "Didn't you say you wanted to stay here?" "Yes, the green, I want to stay here," the peony fairy said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu just smiled. In terms of the shadow in his heart, the devil lord was definitely much bigger. The eternal emperor said to the peony fairy, "You are an immortal. The demonic energy here will pollute the power of immortals. Moreover, you jumped down from the immortals' viewing platform. Your body will decay faster. You will die soon." "What do you mean?" The devil lord frowned. "The power in your body is dissipating?" The peony fairy nodded. "Yes, very uncomfortable." The eternal emperor was still stabbing. "In the future, the peony fairy will become immortal. In a few months, or a few years, your body will decay." The devil lord gripped the peony fairy's hand tightly. "I won't allow it. I won't allow it. It's all right." The peony fairy heaved a forlorn sigh. "This is my fate anyway." Emperor Qinghua didn't care about the peony fairy's life at all. Instead, he felt like it would be better if the peony fairy died like this. Perhaps the prophecy of divine destruction wouldn't come true. It was best if she died. Why do you care if she dies or not? It's even better if she dies. Emperor Qinghua whispered to Emperor Changsheng, if we really do bring her back to the divine realm, the Devil Lord might try to take her away from the divine realm. When that time comes, the prophecy will come true. We can just stay in the demon realm. What does her life have to do with us? Emperor Changsheng didn't say anything. He didn't mention bringing the peony fairy back to the divine realm again. However, his brows were still tightly furrowed. In the end, he heaved a silent sigh. If you want this female immortal to stay with you, then she can stay with you in the demon realm, the Devil Lord said to the peony fairy in a gentle voice. The peony fairy immediately asked Ning Shu, are you willing to stay in the demon realm? Ning Shu. The demon realm will corrode my power and body. The peony fairy immediately said to the Devil Lord, then we won't stay in the demon realm. The Devil Lord let loose a muffled groan as he clutched his chest, speechless. Ning Shu was about to die from laughter. This was the peony fairy's personality. It looked like the peony fairy hadn't fallen in love with the Devil Lord yet, but the Devil Lord was already kneeling before her halo. The Devil Lord glared at Ning Shu with his death gaze before speaking to Ning Shu in an extremely reluctant voice, you're the peony fairy's friend, right? Why don't you stay in the demon realm and accompany her? Ning Shu was very worried that the Devil Lord was going to twist his head off if he said no. Ning Shu replied, I'll listen to the peony fairy. Huh? The peony fairy was surprised. She had never been the type of person to make decisions. If someone else made the decision, she would just follow. Now that she had to make a decision, she turned to Ning Shu and asked, do you want to go back to the divine realm or the demon realm? I'll go wherever you go. The peony fairy had unwittingly kicked the ball back to Ning Shu. The Devil Lord glowered at Ning Shu with a cold expression. Ning Shu. Where's your own opinion? Emperor Qinghua spoke, Za. Lu Yi, you can stay here and accompany the peony fairy. Ning Shu chuckled coldly. You'll have to walk when you go back. Without the golden dragons, how long would it take for them to walk back? That's all right, we can walk, Emperor Qinghua replied without any hesitation. Ning Shu immediately understood what these two emperors were trying to do. They wanted the peony fairy to die in the demon realm. Ning Shu stared at Emperor Changsheng. Emperor Changsheng's attitude was quite surprising to Ning Shu. Was he giving up on the peony fairy for the sake of the divine realm? Emperor Changsheng didn't seem to be the type of person who would go berserk in the storyline. Perhaps Emperor Changsheng had chosen the peony fairy for the sake of the divine realm. A faint smile appeared on Ning Shu's face. He had just barely completed his mission. I'll stay in the demon realm with you, Ning Shu said to the peony fairy. The peony fairy faltered slightly before nodding. All right. The Devil Lord gave Ning Shu a look of approval. Treat this place as your home from now on. Chapter 2397. Ning Shu didn't take the Demon Lord's polite words to heart. Hee, you tried to kill me last time. According to Fairy Peony's personality, the Demon Lord was going to try to kill her many times in the future. Ning Shu withdrew the golden dragon and had the two emperors walk back. Without the support of the golden dragon, the two great emperors slowly floated to the ground. Their clothes fluttered in the wind, and they looked like immortals. However, their expressions weren't very good. Ning Shu continued, if you give me 3 more outer heavenly stones each, I'll take you to the exit of the demon realm. How about that? Emperor Qinghua asked with a cold expression, why 3? Because I'll have to come back if I take you there. In the demon realm, the more energy I use, the more energy I expend, Ning Shu replied in a matter-of-fact manner. That was 2 trips back and forth. Greedy woman. Emperor Qinghua spat with hatred, are you really going to stay here and not go back to the divine realm? If I go back to the divine realm, you'll want me to serve you tea again. Here, the demon lord treats me as an honored guest. Ning Shu replied with a smile. Emperor Qing Hua's brows furrowed. Don't forget that you're still an immortal. You're at odds with the demon realm. You clearly want me to stay here. Ning Shu pursed his lips. Do you want to take the golden dragon back? Or do you want someone from the demon realm to take you there? You're both emperors, but you can't fly in the demon realm and have to be taken back by someone from the demon realm. How embarrassing. My golden dragon is of high quality. It'll look great in the sky. Ning Shu was like a salesman trying to solicit customers. What a tacky woman. Qing Hua pulled out 3 outer heavenly stones before tossing them to Ning Shu. Another 3 outer heavenly stones. Ning Shu was ecstatic. If you don't give them to me, then I'll have to take Emperor Qing Hua back. Emperor Changsheng took a deep breath before tossing 2 outer heavenly stones to Ning Shu. I only have 2 on me. Ning Shu's expression immediately turned ugly. Then I won't hook up with you. Emperor Qing Hua could only take out another piece and toss it to Ning Shu. Emperor Qing Hua felt like he was being forced into a corner. Ning Shu looked at Qing Hua from head to toe. This guy must be a tycoon. He used 6 renminbi in total. Ning Shu counted with his fingers. During this period of time, he had obtained 10 stones. In addition to the previous 2 stones, he had already obtained 12 stones. Sure enough, extortion was the fastest way to earn money. He wouldn't have such an opportunity again. Ning Shu very happily released the fire dragon and said to Peony, "Wait for me here. I'll be back soon." The Peony fairy nodded. Okay. The 2 emperors got on the dragon's back. The Longevity Emperor looked back at the Peony Fairy. The Peony Fairy waved at the 3 people on the dragon. The Longevity Emperor closed his eyes and turned his head away from her. The return speed was much faster. Ning Shu stood on the golden dragon head and waited for the entrance to the demon world to stop. See you later. Ning Shu was just about to head back. Weed, I advise you to leave the demon world as soon as possible. The Peony Fairy is going to die sooner or later, Emperor Qing Hua said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at him with a suspicious expression. Emperor Changsheng said in a cold voice, "Let's go, Qing Hua." Emperor Qing Hua immediately entered the passageway. Ning Shu stood on the dragon head and flew back to the royal palace. After returning to the royal palace, he discovered that there was a vast expanse of people waiting for him. The demon master, who had been quite amiable just a moment ago, was now looking at Ning Shu as if he had stolen his wife. The Peony Fairy waved at Ning Shu. "Lu Yi, I'm here. Ning Shu, that I see you." Ning Shu made his way over to the Peony Fairy. The demon master had people lead the Peony Fairy and Ning Shu to her bedchamber. The Peony Fairy's palace was decorated like a fairyland on earth. As soon as he entered, the courtyard was filled with the sound of birds and the fragrance of flowers. It was filled with colorful flowers, butterflies, and bees. The palace was also decorated in a fairy-like manner, completely according to the layout of the god realm. There were pastries and juicy fruits on the table in the room. The Peony Fairy was living very well. "This is my room," the Peony Fairy said in a melancholic voice. "The demonic maidens here don't like me, and they don't like the decorations either. They say it's ugly, but I think it's beautiful." Ning Shu abruptly changed the subject. "Can I take a look at your body?" Ning Shu guessed that the Peony Fairy's body should be similar to hers. There should be such black silk in her body. The Peony Fairy nodded before allowing Ning Shu to inspect her body. Ning Shu unleashed his divine sense, but he didn't inspect the Peony Fairy's meridians. Instead, he inspected her blood directly. This thing was hidden within her blood, and it was completely undetectable. Ning Shu was stunned. He looked at the peony fairy in astonishment. The peony fairy's blood vessels were filled with such black silk, and it made her blood look dark and dense. Was it because she had been delayed for too long? Or was it because she stayed in the demon realm that these black silk grew? Ning Shu asked, "Can you still release immortal techniques?" The peony fairy tried to release a clear dust technique, but it didn't work. After several attempts, she shook her head at Ning Shu. "I can't do it." The peony fairy was very calm. She probably didn't realize that she had no power. Ning Shu, the peony fairy pulled Ning Shu aside and told Ning Shu about her experience in the demon realm. For example, the demonic maidens here were very fierce, like fairies, and they beat people at the slightest provocation. Also, the demon master was a good person. She sympathized with the demon master for a second. As she spoke, the peony fairy was a little tired. She lay down on the chaise lounge and fell asleep with her eyes closed. Immortals shouldn't feel tired, but there were a lot of black silk in the peony fairy's body. It dissolved her strength and then her vitality. Moreover, this was the demon realm. There was no spiritual energy at all for cultivation. The demon chi would also pollute the immortal body. Under these multiple effects, the peony fairy probably wouldn't live for long. The heavenly Tao was really cold. It gave so much love, but it took it away just like that. After the peony fairy fell asleep, the demon master appeared in the hall. He looked at Ning Shu. "How is her body?" "Not good. She can't hold on for long," Ning Shu said directly. "You can check the blood in her blood vessels." The demon master covered the back of her hand with his hand and carefully sensed for a while. When he opened his eyes, a storm was brewing in his eyes. "Didn't you jump down with her? Why are you fine?" The demon master stared at Ning Shu sharply. "I also have something to do. It's just that I was in the mortal world before and could cultivate. I can barely resist it. If you want her to live, you can send her back to the immortal world. There is a lot of spiritual energy there. The power of spiritual energy can barely resist the melting power, but as time goes by, her body will weaken faster and faster." Ning Shu explained. "There was too much. It wouldn't work even if the blood was drained. I won't send her back to the immortal world. Don't even think about it." The demon master was firm. "I will save her. There is nothing I can't do." Ning Shu. Up to you. Chapter 2398. Ever since they knew that the peony fairy was about to die, the entire palace was in a gloomy atmosphere. That was the pressure from the demon master. All the demons wanted to stuff their heads into their pants. They trembled, not daring to get close to him. The demon master found many demon generals and knowledgeable demons to ask if there was a way to control the immortals' viewing platform's damage to the immortals. Everyone said no, they had never heard of it. Someone even asked if the immortals who jumped down from the immortals' viewing platform would definitely die. The demon master was so angry that he beat up the demon general who spoke and told him not to come again. One of the older demons stroked his beard and looked very wise. He said to the demon master, "King, I know a way." "What way?" the demon master asked in surprise. The demon said, "I once read in an ancient book that the god realm has something called the three-flowered nine-leaf grass. This divine item's fruit has the effect of purifying the body and purifying the immortal body. It can also purify the blood and achieve the effect of being reborn. That fairy's immortal body has a problem, but if you try this thing, it might be effective." The old demon said unhurriedly. "Good, I'll go to the god realm to pick the three-flowered nine-leaf grass fruit." The demon master immediately wanted to go to the god realm. "Wait." The old demon hurriedly stopped the demon master. "What else?" "The three-flowered nine-leaves grass is a heaven-defying divine item that is guarded by 4 great emperors of the god world. Moreover, it has accompanying divine beasts protecting it. It will not be easy for the Devil Lord to obtain the divine fruit of the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass. The Demon Master slapped the table. If I had known, I wouldn't have let the 2 great emperors go. If I killed them directly, the chances of getting the fruit would be much higher. No matter what, I have to go to the God realm. He wasn't afraid of difficulties, he was afraid of not having a way. And even if he went to the God realm to ask for a fruit, the 4 great emperors would give him face. The Demon Master's mood immediately improved. He rewarded the old demon with many good things and then went to the Peony Fairy's palace. He just couldn't stand the pretentious people of the God realm. They occupied such a good place, but when he saw the Peony Fairy's palace, such a beautiful place, it should be worthy of a suitable master. The Demon Master somewhat yearned to live in a beautiful place with the Peony Fairy. The Demon Master had no confidence in his place. The God realm was too ugly. He didn't have any confidence in front of the Peony Fairy. It was as if the people of the heavenly realm were driving a Porsche while the Devil Lord was driving a QQ car. They were on completely different levels. The Peony Fairy was talking to Ning Shu. When the Devil Lord came here and saw this scene, he was very annoyed. He disliked this female immortal who came out of nowhere. Peony, I have found a way. The Devil Master made a solemn vow to Peony, don't worry, no matter how difficult it is, I will save you. The Fairy Peony Fairy Ning Shu. What solution have you found? The Devil Lord looked at the Peony Fairy deeply and then left the room. The Peony Fairy, Fairy. Ning Shu shrugged and spread out her hands. Fairies, why the gods? Why don't we ask? The Peony Fairy asked. Ning Shu nodded. When the Peony Fairy wanted to see the Demon Master, she was told that the Demon Master had left for the God realm. Ning Shu, why did he go to the God realm? Did the God realm have something that could save the Peony Fairy? If there was something that could eliminate the power of the Immortal's viewing platform, it wouldn't be feared by so many gods. Was the Demon Master tricked by someone? Ning Shu shook his head. It was all a trick. The Peony Fairy was even more confused. Why did he go to the God realm? Ning Shu went through many difficult inquiries and found out that these devils were very hostile towards the gods of the God realm. When Ning Shu asked, these devils all ignored her. Ning Shu had no choice but to use hypnosis on the Devil Cultivator and obtain some trivial information. Probably because he wasn't proficient in hypnosis, the demons either woke up quickly or struggled to wake up during the hypnosis. This skill was rubbish. Ning Shu hypnotized these demons for 2 reasons. One was to get information, and the other was to practice his hypnosis. When he was more proficient, Ning Shu went to hypnotize the demons with higher status. The Peony Fairy looked at Ning Shu silently. She stood aside without saying a word. After Ning Shu left, she followed behind her. Finally, they got more complete information from a demon. Ning Shu wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and looked at the Peony Fairy. Ning Shu asked, how do you feel? He's a good person. He's very good to me. He's not a god, but he's not bad, the Peony Fairy said. Ning Shu, aren't you worried that he'll be hurt? The Peony Fairy's buff was invisible. You love me, but I don't feel it. The Peony Fairy frowned. He'll be hurt. Ning Shu. He went to the heavenly realm to steal something. I've never heard of the 3 flowers and 9 leaves grass. It should be some secret treasure. He'll definitely have a conflict with the heavenly realm. One side wanted something, and the other side didn't give it. These 2 sides would have a conflict. He felt familiar with the routine of the heavenly realm. The Peony Fairy frowned gloomily. Why did he do that? I don't want you to die. Ning Shu's shoulders drooped. Fei. I like you very much. Who would do that to a stranger on the side of the road? The peony fairy didn't seem to feel the impending death. Ning Shu couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you afraid?" "Afraid of what?" the peony fairy asked back. "I'm afraid of death." Ning Shu was very afraid of death. She was terrified. The peony fairy looked confused. "I don't know." It seemed that the peony fairy didn't fall in love with the Devil Lord during this time, but the Devil Lord was deeply in love with her. Did the peony fairy really not like people? Or did she not understand what love was? Ning Shu and the peony fairy waited for the Devil Lord to come back. The peony fairy was a little anxious. She kept asking Ning Shu, "When will he come back?" "I don't know." "Don't worry. He'll be fine. He won't die," Ning Shu said calmly. Ning Shu speculated according to the heavenly realm. If it was not unexpected, the Devil Lord would definitely not get the fruit of the 3 flowers and 7 leaves grass. According to the routine of the heavenly realm, this 3 flowers and 7 leaves grass was of vital importance to the 4 great emperors. They would definitely not hand it over. What a terrible routine. Anyway, these 2 sides would fight. The Devil Lord would not die. If he died, the Devil Realm would be leaderless. No one would lead the demons of the Devil Realm to fight against the heavenly realm. Such a calculation, Ning Shu felt that this plane should be a super plane. The power of the plot was very strong and could not be changed. Chapter 2399. The stronger the plane, the stronger the heavenly Tao. It was very difficult to reverse the heavenly Tao. It was very difficult to do so in this kind of world. Just the power of reversing the heavenly Tao was very tiring. Moreover, the heavenly Tao could mobilize any creature in the world as a chess piece to deal with the existence that violated the heavenly Tao. Ning Shu rubbed her face. She had been calculated. After all, she had jumped off the Immortals viewing platform with the peony fairy in her arms. The peony fairy needed something from the Immortals viewing platform. The demon master came back with injuries. He sat on the couch. Blood dripped from his black clothes to the ground. It was like acid dripping on the ground. The peony fairy immediately asked with concern, "Are you okay? Don't go to the Immortals world." The demon master's face was gloomy. When he saw the peony fairy, he softened a little. "It's okay. It's just a little injury. It will be fine after a while. I won't let anything happen to you. Actually, I'm fine. I don't need to go to the Immortals world. I feel that my body is fine," the peony fairy said carelessly. The demon master touched the peony fairy's head. "I won't let anything happen to you." The demon master repeated these words over and over again. The peony fairy looked at Ning Shu blankly. She had already said that she didn't need to go. Why did he insist on going? "Don't go. You'll get hurt," the peony fairy said. The demon master smiled. He looked happy and asked in surprise, "Are you worried about me?" "Yes, I'm very worried," the peony fairy said without thinking. He was going to steal something from the Immortals world for her. Of course she was worried. "Don't worry. No one in this world can do anything to me." The demon master smiled like a fool. Ning Shu couldn't bear to watch. The peony fairy said again and again that he didn't need to go, but the demon master said, "Don't worry." In the end, the peony fairy gave up talking. She returned to the palace and asked doubtfully, "Why is he doing this?" Ning Shu was basically sure that the peony fairy didn't have any feelings. Men were dying for her, but she didn't feel it. She couldn't feel it. She felt sad for those men. Ning Shu only said, "He likes to play like that. Just let him be. It's good if he can really get his things back." It was basically impossible. The demon master recuperated for a period of time and went to the divine realm to steal the divine fruit. However, when he came back, he was still injured. Moreover, his injuries were very serious this time. He was half dead. The moment he came back, he went into seclusion to cultivate and recuperate. Alright, he went to the immortal realm again. He was reluctant to part with the immortal realm. He gave the Devil Master a thumbs up for his perseverance. Love makes people brave. But this time, when the Devil Lord returned, only a trace of his soul had floated back. His physical body was gone. After that, the entire demon realm was infuriated. What was the immortal realm trying to do? Wasn't it just asking for something? Besides, the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass had 3 fruits. What was wrong with giving one? The demonic chi cultivators were existences that were on par with the deities. How could they not give him face? The peony fairy was scared out of her wits. She told the demon lord not to go. Even his physical body was destroyed. The demon master still said, "Don't worry, everything will be fine." Then, he jumped into the demon pool and condensed his body. He reckoned that the divine realm had gone through a great battle and the Devil Master was beaten until only his soul was left. Then, the situation in the divine realm shouldn't be too good. The demon lord took a long time to condense his physical body. During this time, the peony fairy's physical condition was getting worse and worse. She became weak and could only lie on the soft couch and sleep. The demon lord condensed his physical body. Seeing the peony fairy's weak state, he decided not to wait. If he waited any longer, the peony fairy would die. So, he hurriedly counted his soldiers and went out to attack the divine realm. The demonic chi cultivators were warlike. Men and women were brave and good at fighting. When they heard that they were going to attack the beautiful divine realm, they all shouted excitedly. They raised their weapons and shouted that they would kill all the deities and occupy the divine realm. They ate delicious fruits and lived in beautiful houses. The demon lord led the demonic chi cultivators out of the demon realm and attacked the divine realm. The war had begun. Ning Shu said to the peony fairy, "Let's go and have a look." The peony fairy nodded. Okay. Ning Shu, he was really helpless. Because the vitality in her body was fading, the peony fairy gradually began to have white hair. But even with white hair, the peony fairy was still very beautiful. No, to be precise, she was even more beautiful. It was a kind of sad beauty of sunset, blooming at the most beautiful time of her life. Her beauty was unparalleled. She dazzled people who saw her. Ning Shu sometimes stared at the peony fairy's face in a daze. He couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. Ning Shu asked the wise old man of the demon realm where the entrance to the divine realm was. Since the deities knew the entrance to the demon realm, then the demons should also know the entrance to the divine realm. After getting the answer, Ning Shu released the golden dragon and took the peony fairy to the exit of the demon realm. "Where is it from here?" Ning Shu asked the peony fairy. Ning Shu pulled the peony fairy. While groping for the passage, he said, "It's the mortal world." "Oh, it's the mortal world." Out of the demon realm, the two suddenly felt a gust of fresh air blowing on their faces. It was too comfortable. It was just ordinary air, but it made the two people living in the demon realm feel very comfortable. Ning Shu blocked the passage to the demon realm and then headed for the entrance to the divine realm. The entrance to the divine realm made Ning Shu feel as if he had passed through the peach blossom spring. It was not easy to enter. The peony fairy was very curious and looked around. The mortal world is similar to the divine realm, but it's not as beautiful as the divine realm. There's also not as much spiritual energy as the divine realm. Ning Shu answered her with "NN" and looked for the entrance. Finally, he found a cave. This cave was set up with a barrier. Ordinary people could not enter at all. Since it was a formation, he had to undo the formation. Ning Shu was busy undoing the formation. The peony fairy sat on a stone and looked at Ning Shu with her chin propped up. Every movement of the peony fairy was as beautiful as a painting. Ning Shu undid the formation and broke the barrier. He pulled the peony fairy into the cave. As soon as the two entered the cave, they were transported to the divine realm. The divine realm, which should have been filled with birds and flowers, was now filled with the sound of killing. The ground was covered with blood. There was the blood of the deities and the demons. The demons' blood was full of corrosive. When it was sprinkled on the ground, it corroded the soil. The plants also withered. There were many corpses along the way. The corpses of the deities and demons were riddled with holes. This war was more intense than Ning Shu imagined. The peony fairy's face was pale. She grabbed Ning Shu tightly and looked very scared. Did the demon lord start a war with the divine realm because of this thing? Ning Shu was silent for a moment and said tactfully, "You are only part of the reason. Moreover, the demon realm has always been coveting the divine realm and has always wanted to replace it." The peony fairy made an "oh" sound. She pulled Ning Shu's sleeve and carefully avoided the corpses on the ground. Seeing the female deity's corpse, she said, "She actually died. She used to scold me. I didn't expect her to die." Chapter 2400. Ning Shu stared at the female immortal's corpse. A large hole had appeared in her chest, and golden blood flowed out. Her expression was twisted with horror. Ning Shu averted his gaze and headed toward the main battlefield. The battle in a canyon in the god realm was particularly fierce. All of the immortals in the god realm were gathered here. 4 emperors were guarding the canyon, and the demon lord was leading an army of thousands. All kinds of immortal techniques surged, erupting with bright light. Sand and pebbles flew, destroying the beautiful immortal world into a barren land. Ning Shu was lying on her stomach, looking down from the top of the canyon. The peony fairy was lying beside her. She saw the thousands of soldiers and horses trying to wash away the enemy like 2 tides. During this time, gods and demons died. The peony fairy couldn't bear to watch. She lowered her head and stared at the soil in front of her. The demon lord was fighting 4 emperors to a standstill. Holy shit, this second demon lord was the strongest. The North Pole Emperor was the first to give up. Because of the backlash from his divination, his body was in the worst condition. Emperor Ziwei's forte lay in divination, followed by tool refinement. In order to save his own life, Emperor Ziwei tossed all types of magic tools toward the Devil Master as if they didn't cost him anything. The self-detonation of the magic tools also inflicted some damage to the Devil Master. The other 3 emperors each had their own unique skills. They were invincible. The 2 sides were evenly matched. Whether it was the battle strength of the big shots or the strength of the soldiers, both sides would suffer if they fought. In truth, the god realm was a bit weaker than the demon realm. The bodies of gods were pure and didn't tolerate impurities. If they were contaminated, they wouldn't be able to use 70% of their strength. Moreover, the demons had invaded the god realm. It was the home field of the god realm, but it was a bit difficult for the gods to drive the demons out. The aftermath of the battle almost razed this picturesque canyon to the ground. War was a meat grinder. Ning Shu had seen bigger battles, so he was as calm as still water. The peony fairy couldn't stand it. She pulled Ning Shu away. She didn't want to watch anymore. Ning Shu said, "Lie down here and sleep." Ning Shu set up a barrier to isolate the sounds of the battle. Ning Shu, the peony fairy, smiled dazzlingly. Ning Shu turned his head away, afraid that he would not be able to suppress the jealousy in his heart. Ning Shu hid at the side and observed. He had no intention of joining the battle. He saw the shockwaves from the attacks hitting the divine world spatial walls and causing a huge impact on the stability of the entire divine world. Perhaps the divine realm would shatter and cease to exist as they fought. Many gods and demons had died because of the war, and the divine world had been destroyed. The heavenly Tao's plan had succeeded. However, Ning Shu still had a doubt in his heart. It didn't matter if the divine realm was broken. After all, the divine realm was filled with abundant spiritual energy. It didn't matter if the spiritual energy flowed into the human world. If this dense spiritual energy flowed into the mortal world, the human world would probably usher in a period of flourishing monsters. As the spiritual energy decreased, it would not be easy for the monsters in the wild to cultivate, and their numbers would decrease. Spiritual qi was beneficial and harmless, but what about the demonic qi of the demonic realm? Demonic qi was a kind of evil power that would cause living beings that came into contact with demonic qi to be demonized and turn into monsters. If devil qi flowed into the human world, it would be a hodgepodge. Moreover, the demon realm was not damaged at all. Could it be that the heavenly Tao allowed the demonic realm to exist? It could tolerate the demonic realm, but not the divine realm. Could it be that the gods had to go to the demonic realm to fight? But the demonic realm was very weak to the gods' power. The gods wouldn't go to the dirty demonic realm. Then how would the heavenly Tao deal with the demonic realm? The battle between the two sides became more and more intense. The demon lord desperately ordered his subordinates to attack. He must get the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass in the canyon. Only the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass could save Peony's life. For the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass, the demon lord fought with his life. On the divine realm side, the 4 great emperors desperately blocked, not giving the demon lord a chance to get the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass fruit. Ning Shu felt that this 3-flowered 9-leaves grass was definitely a trick of the heavenly Tao. Many gods and demons died in the battle. Black blood and golden blood mixed together. The originally beautiful canyon had been eroded by the blood of the demons into a barren place. The air was filled with demonic qi, which gradually corroded the spiritual energy in the canyon. From the sky to the ground, the aftermath of the battle directly hit the divine realm's spatial wall. The people who were fighting didn't feel it, but Ning Shu clearly felt the entire divine realm shake. If this battle continued for any longer, the divine realm was going to collapse. The peony fairy yawned and really did fall asleep next to him. Her expression was serene and beautiful. It felt like the peony fairy was a little heartless. "Can't you give me one of the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass fruits?" the demon lord asked in an irritated voice. His long hair fluttered in the wind, and his expression was extremely ugly. "If you don't kill everyone in the divine realm, I'll make the divine realm flow with rivers of blood." "Do you know how precious the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass is?" Emperor Qing Hua harumphed coldly. There were only 3-flowered 9-leaves grass fruits, and none of the 4 great emperors could get a single one. There were only 3 fruits, so one of them was destined to fail. This fruit could allow a god to survive in the face of heavenly tribulation. Gods also had their own tribulations. All kinds of calamities would appear on the god's body, forming black spots that would crawl all over the god's body. At that time, the god would vanish into thin air. Furthermore, they were in the midst of a god-slaying period, so they had to rely on the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass fruits to survive this tribulation. There was also a saying that eating the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass fruits would allow one to transcend the heavenly Tao and be free from the control of the heavenly Tao. This was extremely tempting. The 3-flowered 9-leaves grass bloomed for a very long time, and it took even longer for it to bear fruit. The 4 great emperors had been waiting for the fruits to ripen, and they had all become extremely haggard. Now that the demon realm had suddenly appeared and wanted to take the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass, the 4 great emperors only had one word in their hearts: gun. The demon lord's robes flapped loudly in the wind. "If you don't give it to me, I'll take it myself. Not only will I take the divine fruits, but I'll also take the divine realm." "What right do you have to take the divine realm for yourselves?" Emperor Ziwei's hand quickly divined, and he let loose a muffled groan as blood seeped from the corner of his lips. He wiped the blood from his lips and said to the demon lord, "If we fight like this, we'll only accelerate our destruction. If the gods are gone, do you think the demons will still exist?" The demon lord, "Then give the 3-flowered 9-leaves fruit to me, and I'll immediately withdraw my troops and never set foot in the divine realm again." The 4 great emperors looked at each other. If they really did give it to the demon lord, then there would be 1 less 3-flowered 9-leaves fruit, and only 2 great emperors would be left. When the heavenly Tao slayed the gods, they wouldn't be able to survive, so they definitely couldn't give it to the demon lord/BK. Chapter 2401. Are you going to give it to me or not? The demon lord roared. He didn't care about the god realm. Even if he conquered the god realm would end up like the demon realm. The god realm couldn't handle the demonic chi of the demons. He only cared about the 3-flower 9-leaf fruit. Seeing how the 4 emperors treasured the fruit, the chances of saving the peony fairy were much higher. The North Pole Emperor quickly pinched his fingers. He was so fast that he left afterimages. He shook his head and said, "I can't give it to you." The demon lord flew into a rage. The peony fairy was still waiting for him in the demon realm. "Then I'll flatten the god realm and kill all the gods." Ning Shu perked up his ears to listen to these people. However, he was far away and couldn't hear much. The battle was very fierce. Gods and demons were dying constantly. Half of the demons brought by the demon lord were dead. There weren't many left. The demon lord was in a difficult position. However, if he retreated like this, it would be very difficult to get the 3-flower 9-leaf fruit. The peony fairy couldn't die. Instead, the devil lord shouted loudly, "Attack! Kill all the gods!" From now on, the devil man will be the only god in the world and will be revered by everyone. Even the high and mighty fairies will become our slaves. Kill them all. The demon lord's voice was very bewitching. The demons who heard these words were like they were injected with chicken blood. They roared and killed the gods. The gods' golden blood splattered on their bodies. They laughed crazily and wickedly. The god realm couldn't hold on anymore. They retreated into the canyon. The female immortals were especially flustered when they heard that they would become the slaves of the filthy demons. Chaos broke out in one place. The god realm's army was in chaos. Their attacks were greatly weakened. The devil lord was very excited. The 3-flowered 9-leaves grass was right in front of him. He used extremely bewitching words to motivate his subordinates. The bodies of the devil dwellers began to swell. Their bodies became even bigger, just like the ferocious Hulk. He held a hammer-like weapon in his hand and smashed it at the god. Every time he smashed it, the entire canyon would tremble. If one was unlucky enough to be smashed by the hammer, he would definitely vomit blood and die. The bodies of the gods were actually not as tough as the bodies of the demons. There was a clear difference in the combat power of the two sides. However, the celestial arts of the gods could also cause great damage to the demons. For example, if they worked together to set up a formation, then these demons would run around the formation like idiots and be killed by the power of the formation. Even so, God continued to retreat into the canyon. The situation was not good. Among the 4 great emperors, the oldest one, the great emperor Dong Do, was already injured by the demon lord. The demon lord's attack was very ruthless. He probably hated these gods for destroying his physical body, so he attacked the 4 great emperors without any regard for his life. 1 against 4, he was actually not at a disadvantage. Ning Shu was speechless. The demon master's newly condensed body was so awesome. "Peony, wake up." Ning Shu nudged the sleeping peony fairy. The peony fairy opened her eyes. She looked confused, with a lazy and charming temperament. "What's wrong?" Move over there. Now, a lot of gods had moved into the canyon. It could be said that the Immortals team had been blocked by the demons. Behind them was the canyon. The Peony Fairy stared at the corpses in the canyon in astonishment. She had only slept for a while, but so many gods and demons had died. Blood had dyed the entire canyon. The Peony Fairy pulled Ning Shu's sleeve. Let's go. I don't want to see it. I feel like it's because of me. It's okay. The battle should be over soon. Ning Shu dragged her into the canyon. The tip of his nose smelled of fragrance. This fragrance was not the fragrance of the Peony Fairy's body, but the fragrance of fruits. It was a sweet fragrance. Could it be the fragrance of the 3-flower 9-leaves fruit? The demon world was like a tiger, forcing the immortal world into the canyon. In addition, the immortal world's team was disciplined and did not follow the orders of the demon world. It seemed that the immortal world was on the right track. Aside from a few emperors and a portion of the immortal world's army, most of the immortal world's immortal world was free to do as they pleased. Now that they had been summoned back, it was quite normal that the demon world was going to attack the immortal world. None of the immortal world's immortal world forces had ever worked together before. The closer they got to the canyon, the more pronounced the fragrance of the fruits became. Ning Shu began to salivate. Even the Peony Fairy exclaimed, "Wow, what kind of fruit is this?" Ning Shu lay prone on the ground and looked around. He saw a shimmering rainbow plant. This plant had 9 leaves and 3 bright red fruits hung from its branches. The fruits were around the size of an infant's fist, and there were droplets of spiritual energy dripping down from the fruits. The colors of the fruits were vibrant and alluring, and everyone swallowed involuntarily upon seeing them. The Demon King's eyes lit up at the sight of the 3-flower 9-leaves fruit, and he immediately rushed toward the fruits, only to be held back by the 4 emperors. The fruits haven't even ripened yet. There's no point in plucking them, Emperor Qin Hua said loudly. Emperor Qin Hua yelled. Even though the fruits were bright red, the ripe 3-flower 9-leaves fruit was green. The other fruits all turned red and yellow after ripening, but the 3-flower 9-leaves fruit was the exact opposite, and it felt like it was defying nature. The Demon King replied nonchalantly, "It's fine if it's not ripe yet. I'll take this plant and find a way to make it mature." Emperor Qin Hua was about to explode from rage. Why were all the people he encountered so unreasonable and unreasonable? What was wrong with this generation? How could they be so arrogant when they were robbing others? Kill them. For every god you kill, I'll reward you with a chance to enter the demonic liquid to materialize a more powerful body. For every 100 gods you kill, I'll reward you with a demonic crystal and make you a demon general. The Demon King's roar made the demon tribe even more excited. Meanwhile, the immortal world's momentum was weakening. Victory was about to be decided soon. Ning Shu stared intently at the battlefield while the Peony Fairy's attention was drawn to the 3-flower 9-leaves fruit. She whispered to Ning Shu, "That plant is so beautiful." Ning Shu fell silent. It was clearly a plant that could kill 3 people with 2 peaches, so it could kill 5 people with 3 fruits. Wow, the fruits are starting to turn green. The Peony Fairy covered her mouth in astonishment. Ning Shu looked over to find that the fruits were indeed turning green at a rate discernible to the naked eye. An even more intense fragrance erupted from the fruits, and the entire valley was enshrouded in the sweet aroma of fruits. It felt like it was telling everyone, "I'm ripe, come and eat me." Ning Shu's lips twitched as he wiped the drool from his mouth. This was a familiar taste, a familiar recipe, this was all a ploy. Why couldn't it have ripened when everyone was fighting to the death? /BK Chapter 2402. Someone announced that the fruit was about to ripen, and the battle between the 2 sides ceased. Everyone held their breaths as they waited for the fruit to ripen. Saliva dripped from their mouths as they waited for the fruit to ripen. Not long after that, the bright red fruit turned into an emerald green fruit with an alluring aroma. Ning Shu sniffed the air and really wanted to try one. It would definitely be very sweet. If he joined the battle, he would be killed by the heavenly Tao on the spot. It would be better for him to just be a spectator. Once the fruit ripened, the 4 emperors who were defending against the demonic army charged toward the fruit almost at the same time in an attempt to snatch it. The demon master faltered slightly upon seeing this. He didn't think that the 4 emperors would be fighting over the fruit, and he immediately joined the fray. Sand and pebbles flew through the air, and the shockwaves from the battle between the 5 of them caused the canyon to tremble violently. The 3-flowered 9-leaf fruit was still swaying slightly from side to side, and it was extremely fragrant. Ning Shu was drooling all over the ground. The peony fairy stared at the fruit with a hand on her chin. It smells so good. Yes, yes, it does. Ning Shu nodded vigorously. The peony fairy turned to Ning Shu. Do you want some? I want some. Let's go pick some, alright. Ning Shu paused momentarily before replying, they're fighting so ferociously. Let's wait for them to run out of energy before we go. The peony fairy nodded. Alright. The battle between the 5 of them was extremely chaotic, and there weren't many immortals left on the battlefield. The sweet scent of the fruit mixed with the pungent odor of blood, and the scene was filled with a sense of madness. Emperor Ziwei said, the 3-flowered 9-leaf fruit will fall off in 4 hours and disappear without a trace. If we keep fighting like this, none of us will be able to get the fruit once the stalk falls off. Ning Shu was a little speechless upon hearing this. Disappear after falling to the ground? Could it be that the ginseng had disappeared after falling to the ground? The demon master harumphed coldly. 4 hours is more than enough for me to kill all of you. Emperor Qinghua, can you shut the fuck up? How can you be so arrogant when you're facing the 4 of us? Ziwei, Changsheng, Dongdo, let's take him out first. As for the 3-flower 9-leaf fruit, we'll see who's more powerful. Thus, the 4 great emperors worked together to attack the demon master. It was 4 against 1, and they were locked in a stalemate. The spatial barrier of the immortal realm had suffered so much that it was probably going to break soon. Ning Shu wondered if he should retreat first and leave before the god world was destroyed. Otherwise, he would be annihilated along with the god world. Fu Zi is injured. The peony fairy looked worried. Ning Shu asked, who is Fu Zi? Fiend Lord. Fighting 1 against 4 was still a bit of a stretch, but the second demon master felt that he was invincible under the heavens. Gods were nothing. The 4 great emperors wanted the 3-flower 9-leaf fruit, and they were as anxious as demon master. They felt that the danger was getting closer and closer. The 4 great emperors wanted to eat the fruit to avoid the danger. The 2 sides could be said to be fighting to the death. The entire god world was trembling because of the power of the battle, and a large number of demons and gods died on the battlefield below because of the powerful shockwaves. The number of gods and demons was decreasing rapidly. All 5 of them were injured, and they were all heavily injured. The 3-flower 9-leaf fruit was slowly falling off its stalk. Seeing this, the 5 of them were about to go crazy. They attacked each other even more crazily, trying to use the fastest time to defeat each other and snatch the fruit when it fell off its stalk. So nervous. Ning Shu did not directly join the battle, but he could feel the craziness rushing towards him. The gods and demons were like grasping at the last life-saving straw, and they went crazy. Ning Shu pressed down on the peony fairy's head and dodged wave after wave of attacks. The 5 of them stood in the dark. Unknowingly, the light in the god world started to dim. There was no day and night in the god world. It was always bright, with birds chirping and flowers fragrant. But when the light in the god world dimmed, Ning Shu felt that something was wrong. He had to bring the peony fairy and retreat first. Green intent, I don't want to leave. The peony fairy looked at Ning Shu with a calm expression. Fu Zi is risking her life to get the fruit for me. I want to stay here and accompany her. Ning Shu was stunned. You and Fu Zi. Fu Zi is a good person. She has done a lot for me. She had entered the God world again and again. Ning Shu. Waha, the demon master has been given the good person card again. Peony, you are very awesome. Ning Shu raised her head and glanced at the God world. Alright, I'll accompany you. Ning Shu wanted to see the final result and see who won. If it was the demon master, he would definitely be hunted down. Whether he could leave the God world would be a problem. If the 4 great emperors won and obtained the fruit, there would be another battle. 4 people fighting for 3 fruits, and one of them had to die to split it evenly. Greed could not be ruled out. They wanted to take all the fruits for themselves. In short, fight fight fight. What a good plan. This battle should be over soon, because the fruit would soon fall off the stalk and disappear. No one could bear the consequences of losing the fruit. Ning Shu held his chin and dozed off. The peony fairy's gaze was always on the demon master Fu Zi. Her gaze followed Fu Zi. Could the peony fairy's destined one be Fu Zi? Speaking of affection, there was no one in the God realm who was willing to risk his life to get something for the peony fairy. Half of the fruit had already fallen off the handle and was about to fall off completely. The demon master gritted his teeth and pounced at the 4 of them. With a plop, he self-detonated his newly condensed demonic body. The huge self-detonation caused the 4 great emperors to lose their ability to fight. One of the great Emperor Dong Do's arms was blown off. Golden blood splattered. Although the other 3 great emperors did not lose an arm or a leg, their bodies were severely injured. They could not even use their immortal arts. The self-detonated demon master turned back into a wisp of soul. His soul was very weak. He floated towards the 3-flowered 9-leaves fruit that was about to fall to the ground and reached out to pick it. But in a split second, a green chopstick-like thing that was nestled under the 3-flowered 9-leaves fruit bit at the demon master's hand. The demon master quickly retracted his hand to avoid being bitten by the little snake. The snake's speed was very fast. It was like a bolt of lightning as it charged towards the 4 great emperors who had not recovered their ability to fight. It probably wanted to bite them to death. Ning Shu, that this should be the 3-flowered 9-leaves fruits accompanying divine beast. It was there to protect the 3-flowered 9-leaves fruit. Previously, these people were fighting until the sky was dark and did not appear. It only appeared when these people were killing each other and had no ability to fight. This meant that this little thing was intelligent. It looked like the green bamboo snake and was definitely poisonous. /BK Chapter 2403. In order to avoid being bitten by the snake, the 4 great emperors all took out their trump cards. Emperor North Pole even took out a cage to trap the snake. However, there was a cracking sound coming from inside the cage. The little green snake actually gnawed a hole in the cage and came out of the cage. Then, under everyone's stunned eyes, it gnawed the entire cage and swallowed it into its stomach. Its body was as thick as a chopstick, but it was able to swallow such a large cage. Its stomach wasn't even bloated yet. Where did all the food go? Everyone was stunned. The little green snake rushed toward Emperor Dongdo, who had lost an arm. Although he was fighting back, the other 3 great emperors couldn't even protect themselves, so they couldn't help. Little green snake bit Dongdo Emperor. Dongdo Emperor's face began to twist. His eyes widened, his pupils contracted, and he howled in pain. His body began to disappear from where he was bitten. In the end, Dongdo Emperor's entire body turned into sand. Everyone was silent. A great emperor was bitten to death by a little snake. Run! The gods and devils reacted and began to flee. If they didn't run now, they would die. The little green snake was very fast. It turned into a beam of green light and bit down on a devil. The devil struggled, but he was turned into ash and disappeared without a trace. Biting a devil, biting a god, both gods and devils would die. Ning Shu's butthole tightened. He rubbed his eyes and didn't see the souls of the gods and devils. Where were their souls? Were they destroyed? Or were they eaten by the snake? He didn't even see the powerful Emperor Dongdo's soul. It was a terrifying existence. Even in war, there would be gods and devils left behind. In that case, this thing could kill any gods that escaped. In the god world, under the noses of the 4 great emperors, the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass was born. And this half-living creature grew up with the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass. It must have a mission. If the peony fairy was the cause, and the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass was a necessary tool, then this thing was supposed to clean up the battlefield and finish off the survivors. One after another, Ning Shu knelt down in admiration. This little green snake bit quite a number of gods and devils, then yawned and flew back to the 3-flowered 9-leaves grass. It coiled around the plant, and at first glance, no one would be able to tell that there was a snake coiling around the plant. The 3 grass of 3-flowered 9 leaves were about to fall off the stalk and fall to the ground. However, the 3 great emperors and the demon masters didn't dare to take it. They could only watch as the fruit fell from the tree and disappeared without a trace. After paying such a high price for 3 fruits, he could only watch as the fruits fell to the ground. This pain, this helplessness. The demon lord gritted his teeth. He wanted to take the risk and pluck the fruit. However, the demon lord didn't have a body now. He was only a soul. If he was bitten, he would definitely die. If he had a body, he could still resist for a while and abandon his body to preserve his soul. The peony fairy immediately shouted, "Fu Zi, don't go." The peony fairy stood up and ran towards the devil lord. Ning Shu had no choice but to follow her. The peony fairy stood in front of the devil lord, panting. "Don't go. That snake is very powerful." The peony fairy, who was already in the body of a mortal, was panting heavily after running for a while. The devil lord was a little surprised to see the peony fairy. He then turned to Ning Shu. "Why are you here? It's very dangerous here. If he was bitten by that snake, he would die." The peony fairy gave an honest reply, "I've been watching from the sidelines this entire time." Ning Shu rubbed his nose. Wasn't the peony fairy a little too honest? Emperor Qin Hua harumphed coldly. "You watched from the sidelines as the demon realm attacked the divine realm, hee. Emperor Qin Hua's rage was directed at Ning Shu. Ning Shu gave a shameless reply. "I'm too weak, so I didn't dare to fight." Emperor Qin Hua was so enraged by this despicable weed's shamelessness that he couldn't help but burst into laughter. "You sure are humble. You have the nerve to call yourself weak." "I've always been weak." Ning Shu splayed his hands open. Why didn't he mention the peony fairy? This battle was all for the peony fairy. There was still a little bit of the 3-flowered 9-leaf grass fruit that was about to fall off the stalk. The devil lord was in a hurry and threw the peony fairy to the ground. The devil lord hurried over to help her up, but his hand passed through the peony fairy's body. "Don't worry, I'll protect myself. I'll make sure you eat this fruit." The peony fairy immediately said, "I don't want to eat this fruit. Fu Zi, please don't die." The devil lord's expression softened. "Be a good girl. If you eat this fruit, we'll be able to live in the demon realm forever. But that snake is very powerful. Let's go back to the demon realm." The peony fairy's clear eyes were filled with hope. The devil lord immediately agreed, but he still insisted on plucking the fruit. The fruit fell to the ground. The peony fairy was confused. "Didn't you agree?" My king." A demon stumbled over. The demon realm is gone. The Devil Lord didn't react for a moment. What do you mean the demon realm is gone? The demon realm is gone. It's gone. I felt the demon realm shake violently. I don't know what happened. I finally got out of the demon realm, but I couldn't find the entrance back to the demon realm. The demon panted. What did you say? The Devil Lord was shocked. How did the demon realm disappear? His nest was gone. Disappeared? The Devil Lord was shocked and puzzled. How was this possible? If the demon realm disappeared, he would be a soul forever. There would be no demon liquid pool to reform his body. If the demon realm was gone, where would the demons live? The Devil Lord was dejected. The three great emperors looked at each other. They didn't understand how the demon realm disappeared. Did the demon realm break? The Devil Lord asked. No, if it did, the demon chi would pour into the human world. The demon realm disappeared along with the demons inside. My king, disappeared. The Devil Lord gritted his teeth. Who did it? He turned to the three great emperors with a sinister expression. Since the demon realm has disappeared, then the divine realm is the new demon realm. You're just a soul now. Do you think you can conquer the divine realm? You don't have a body to self-detonate again, Emperor Qin Hua said coldly. The divine realm will always belong to the gods. Ning Shu was astonished. The demon realm disappeared. Disappeared all of a sudden. Was there someone in this world who was powerful enough to teleport an entire space away? Or was it a mission enforcer who teleported the demon realm away during the war between the two realms? /BK You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.